Recording. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the session and being on time. Today we'll have three different speakers speaking about three different topics regarding to web building and building a web page. We'll be starting with Hercules, but before we do so, I wanted to give you a quick introduction about the project if you haven't heard about it yet. So the project is called DIG-IT, and it's a Erasmus Plus funded project by the European Union. The second one we applied after funded, and the main goal of this is for us to improve our online presence for the USE-IT Europe network. We don't know yet how it's going to look like, if it's going to be a web page or an app or both. But most importantly, we want to give you the skills to be able to create your own website for your own city or your personal one. And this is the third out of three seminars that we already had. The first one was gathering all the input from the network. What would you like to see in the new platform? What works, what doesn't work? And the second one was a presentation by Tomáš from the Czech Republic on different kinds of tools that are used to make a website, and especially different kinds of map tools, because, well, we are a mapping community, and we can, like, for example, Google Maps, OpenStreetMaps, the ones that you probably know the most. And the goal of these three seminars is to prepare for the hackathon that will happen in Wrocław, Poland in February, end of February, to which I assume all of you are planning to join since you are here today. Without further ado, I'll then pass the word to Hercules. You can, in the meantime, keep continuing to fill the Jamboard if you have a few moments. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, or let's wait until the presentation from Hercules to come to an end to ask them. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll take that as a no. In that case, Hercules, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone. So I got a task, a mission to tell you something about HTML, CSS. I got an information that it would be something about programming in CSS, but CSS is in HTML, but HTML isn't strictly a programming language. So I will share my screen. I hope. Okay. So do you see the code or my main screen?
The code.
The code. So great. So this is basically what HTML looks like. It's the template I sent you, and this is a program, VS Code. Don't confuse it with Visual Studio. It's just by looking at it, it's more or less the same thing, although VS Code is much lighter, it's much simpler, and Visual Studio is a really big program. So, if you haven't downloaded it, the link is in the chat. So this is how the code looks like. So basically, this is how you design a website from the back end. Really, Adrian, you raised your hand, didn't you?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. So what you're showing now is the code of the USE-IT Europe website, right? How it looks like?
No, it isn't the code of USE-IT Europe website. I will show you how it looks like. It's much more complicated, and there would be a lot more text in it, for example. And this isn't a programming language, because this is more or less designing where things should go, how they should look like, and so on and so on. So we are not programming in HTML, we are just designing. But why are we designing in HTML and not making, for example, an image? So first, you can copy and paste text. That's cool. Second, when you create an image, it weighs a lot more than just a couple of lines of text. And third, it's more responsible. So you can shrink the website and make it bigger. You can use it on your phones and so on. And that's why we use code text to design a website, to change colors, change text, and so on. So for example, I have a couple of this is, for example, an example of code that creates for example, a square at the bottom, right? So this is strictly a programming language. It's called C. It's really low level. I love it. But when looking at it, it's more or less the same when you first encounter any code. But we're focusing on HTML. So I hope everyone has Visual Studio Code. But first, let's go to the USE-IT website. USE-IT Europe, I chose Wrocław. And I don't know if anyone knows this, I don't know, trick. But when I was in high school, in my Polish class, because I'm Polish, and I didn't get very good grades. So I tricked my parents that in the web, on the website where we all get grades, I got all 6s, so the best grades. But all that I had was 2s and 3s, so basically failing, almost failing. But how did I do it? So it was really nice website. It was you could scroll it and so on, but it didn't show true data fetched from the server. So we can change how the code looks in our browser. So when you, for example, let's get this block of text, you can right click on it and look for inspect. It could be a bit lower, a bit higher. Yeah, look up code or inspect. And what will show up, let me make it a bit bigger. Well, it looks complicated, but it really isn't. Like there are a lot of layers of dividers, so divs which we'll cover for a second later. But it's really simple when you really get into it. I had to, yeah, antivirus not working. Inspect. So we are here. See if I'm zooming. Can you see it or not?
Zooming, no.
No. So it's just internal thing. So we have this P. So this is a paragraph, and we have a small triangle here. And when we expand it, we can see the text. So we can click twice on it and change its text. So hello, or hello, Wrocław is great, for example. And you can press enter, and this is how we change the text on the website. You raised your hand, Adrian?
Yeah, so you are now making changes live in our website. So does it mean that anyone can just write whatever they want in our website? There's no protection or anything?
No. So basically how it works is the server sends you a file or a couple of files. For example, it sends you an HTML. So this is what HTML looks like, this whole thing, and your browser displays it. But you can, on your own computer, just have fun with it. So you can open it, you can change some colors, you can change the text, but it doesn't change what the server sends to other people. It would be
so
cool.
This is only in your computer.
It's only in my computer. So if I, for example, refresh the web page, so F5, on Windows or Command R on Mac, yeah, you can see that it has fetched, so got pretty much the same thing. So we can change it again and again and again and again. And there is a lot of cool things to do in here, but we'll get back to it. So please open the VS Code. Yeah. And open with VS Code template 01 HTML and template 01 CSS. So please raise your hands when you're done. And in the meantime, I'll be talking about how everything works. So
for the ones that join later, there's a small program, if you haven't downloaded yet, it's in the chat called Visual Studio, and that's what Hercules is talking about.
No, it's not Visual Studio, it's VS Code. Yeah, it's Visual Studio Code, it's not Visual Studio. Visual Studio is really big and not worth littering your computer.
Thanks for the correction.
Hey, sorry guys, but if I joined later, I cannot see the previous messages on the chat, or can I? Because I can see.
I will pass it again. Sorry.
Oh, thank you.
So, HTML isn't the one and only thing we can get from the server. We also can get something called PHP. So the difference between PHP and HTML is a bit more advanced. So PHP, I think Marcin would hate me for it, but PHP is just an HTML file, so a normal website that can get different things depending on, for example, who you are or what time is it. So let's open youtube.com. So everyone would get a different thing, right? So you wouldn't get the same videos when you open it at the same time. It knows who I am, so it knows who I subscribe to, and it sends me different things. But what we are doing right now, we cannot do it just yet. And in today's lesson, we won't learn it because it involves working with the server. We can send a static website, so HTML. And this is what we will be learning. So if you have it open, please do a thumbs up on the Zoom or something, so I can know that I can proceed and not talk about random things. Yeah, Marcin raised hand. Adrian, thumbs up. Great. So I will proceed, and if someone has technical problems, please unmute your microphone. So we have a folder called USE-IT.template, and we have a couple of files: HTML, CSS, JS which will not touch, favicon, and USE-IT Europe large, which is your logo. Yay! So if you double click on template.html, or if it opens Visual Studio Code, just open it with Safari or Chrome, or I have Brave browser. So you can open it with the Brave browser, and we can inspect it again. So more or less, this is really the same thing that we have in here, right? So you can world and change it to maybe hi, for example, and save it. So Command S or Control S on Windows. And you can refresh it and it has changed. So the browser for now is our preview, and this is where we will make all the changes. So if we make a change in here, in the browser, so we can type in, for example, this, because why not? We will not see the change in here. So here we are editing this file, and here we are just fiddling around with what we've got. But if we refresh, we will get exactly the same thing. So, like I said, like I answered Adrian with the previous question. So, let's talk about what this code looks like. So we have a lot of like these, not curly brackets like this. Oh, Iris, you have a question. I think I. Oh,
yes, now you hear me now. So I was still downloading everything, and it goes a little bit fast. Like, what is the setup I need to have right now?
You can edit it in a text editor. Like HTML is just a text file, so you can open it with like anything that can edit text. So, for example, text edit in Mac or no, text edit doesn't work, so we have to do it somehow. You use Windows or Mac?
I use Windows, but what I understood is like having the HTML opened with like I have it open with Chrome, and you also have it opened with the. I just want to know the setup I need to have to continue or like to keep up.
So you can open it with just text editor with the Notepad or the basic text editor, right?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So it won't show up those really nice colors and everything, but it will work because we are just fiddling around with text. We are not doing some really advanced things in here. So what we have here is the main division. So head is things that won't show up, for example, on our website. So how the website tells us in the tab on the tab what website it is. So we can there is a title tag, for example, in head, so it won't show up on the main page. So in here, so head will be everything like this icon, this, and for example, what we send to a server, or a Google Analytics, and everything. So this is everything that is happening in the head. And look how these things look like. So we have these brackets, right? And we tell what it is. So this bracket heads with this bracket. And at the end, when we close it, we open this bracket, we paste slash head and close it. So this is how we open a section. So for example, section title. Here we can write some titles. So you can write, for example, hi or anything in your language. I will say cześć in Polish, which is hi, and we close the title so the browser knows that we have made a title. We can save it, reload the website, and we see cześć. Hooray! So we've edited a website. And there are a couple of things like meta-charset UTF-8, which allows you to use emojis, and things like umlaut and French letters. We don't change it. Here we have favicon.ico or icon. So when we change this file, the browser knows where to go. It will get this file and put it in here. So I downloaded this favicon from USE-IT Europe and just pasted it in here, right? So this is where the favicon goes. Link rel style sheet href template css.css. So I could name it a bit simpler, but this is how I label my files. So this is CSS, but we'll get into it later. So this is how we link other documents. So HTML isn't the only document that we can send from the server. We can send a couple of files, and one can be HTML, other can be CSS. So the main difference we will talk about later, but for now, HTML, we build a website, like in blocks, for example, we paste text into it, and in CSS, we can change how the blocks look like. For example, the colors, the fonts, and so on. And this is everything we have. We have also templates 0 on JS. I think we won't talk about JavaScript today, but if we have time at the end, then we can talk about it. And we closed our head. So this is everything that we have in our head. So it really doesn't show up in here. If we delete everything, it wouldn't look the same. Like for the main part, it would look the same, like including content, but in the CSS file, we have all the styles, like what the colors are. We'll get back to it later. But we can, like, for example, delete everything. It looks the same, right? So this is the things that don't show up. And now we have body, which is my favorite part because this is where the website gets built. So we have a couple of things in here, like EMG. What can IMG stand for? Like for
image.
I think image. Yeah. So this is image source, and USE-IT Europe large.jpg. So we can go to our folder. Yeah, this is USE-IT Europe .jpg. Alt, which is something that shows up when you look for this image, for example, in the Google browser. So it fetches this alternative text, and Google can look for the images just based on the alternative text. And style, this is what would normally be in the CSS, but we can paste here, like for example, how the what the width is. So we can change it to, for example, 200 pixels. Save it, reload it. It's smaller. Marina. No. So
sorry, it was a mistake. My bad.
No problem. HR is a horizontal line, which we can see in here. And we have divs, dividers. Oh boy. So when we go into the USE-IT Europe webpage, we can once again inspect it. And we can see that there are a lot of divs, dividers in here, right? But when we hover over it, so for example, this is div, this is a block, right? We built the website mainly from rectangular blocks. This is another div. This is another div. This is another div, which is a bit lower, I suppose. This is the same. Yeah. So there are a lot of dividers. So when we go to, for example, again, youtube.com, inspect it. Ooh. Like you can see everything is built on divs. This is div, this is div, this is div, this is div, this is div. So blocks inside blocks inside blocks inside blocks inside blocks inside blocks, and this is how we basically build a website, which is quite time consuming, but it's really cool to understand how it works. There's also one cool feature in the browsers. This is a select an image, an element in the page to inspect it. It's in most browsers, it looks like this this pointer, and you can look at all the divs and all the things in here, how it looks like, how are they separated, and so on and so on and so on. It's really cool to look up how the code works. So we have dividers in here, right? So we can once again click on it. So we have our body. Yeah, this is in here, right? So this is our body. This is our image. This is our HR, so horizontal line. This is our first div, second div. This is H2, which is a header, a smaller header. P for paragraph. A. This is my favorite part. So I have a small like my favorite information and my favorite thing that I've learned during last week, which I really didn't know, that, for example, when you write an email, so I have to move you somewhere else. Let's write an email, and let's write something, then make this text really big, and so on and so on. I've downloaded extension to my browser called Gmail HTML editor. Oh, it's yeah, it's in here. Look, the emails are HTML. How cool is that? Right? So when we send an email with images and everything with the stylings, this is how we communicate. So basically, the whole internet runs on HTML. So let's fiddle with the code for a bit. So here we have our website, and let's enter some text. So the first coding we will do. So the first thing that most tutorials begin with is a P. So you have to write this bracket, write P, and close it. And in VS Code, when you close a divider, a parameter, or an element, which is how it's professionally called, when you close an element with another bracket, it automatically creates this closing of an element. So you can write hello. Tutorial, right? We can save it, and where do you think it will appear? So we have our body, so it will show up. We have this horizontal line. We have this big div, this big block, inside of which there are two blocks. And here, sorry, here we'll paste this text. So what do you think? Where will it appear?
It should appear below.
Yeah, so yeah, great. So it appears below. And let's add another one. So we can get H1, which is a header, and sorry, not this one. Header, for example, we can save it, and where will it appear?
Just above the paragraph.
Yeah, it will appear just above this paragraph, and we can copy and paste it a couple of times, and save it, which is really important. And this is how, in the old days, the websites were built. So when you open a really old website that hasn't been updated in like 900 years, this is how the website would look like, although with a default font. So when we inspect it, we get a header, and then a P. And what is really frustrating is everything is cascading. Everything is below, like paragraph is below another paragraph, and below, for example, a header. And how can we get things near each other? Yeah, by using divs. So this is why you see a whole lot of divs in here, right? So when we want to build like blocky website with all the things precisely put in there, we use divs. But when we want just some text like in an email, we don't use it. We just use headers, paragraphs, and some style editors, or for example, the text size or the font. Yeah, but this is how we add things into it. But how would we add a header below this block of text in here? Like, where in the code would it be?
In the right div.
Yeah, in the right div. So the right div is the top one in here, or the bottom one in here?
The bottom one.
Yeah, the bottom one, because like in, yeah, because the whole internet world is like Western centric. We read left to right. So what's below would be either below or on the right side. So how would we put for example, a title like a header? We would open a bracket. We'll
H1.
H1, exactly. It would automatically get the program will automatically close the element, and between those openings and closings we can type something. So yeah, and we have something. Great, but it's boring, really. So if you want to have a website with just images and plain text, like, it's not useful at all. You need to have, for example, the most important thing on a website, which is links. So when I open my Gmail, for example, I won't do it. So we have a link in here, right? The orange one.
That's the A you were about to tell us.
One more time.
That's the A you were about to tell us.
Yeah, it's the A. So we have our something, right? We can make it a link. So we can open a bracket. We can write A, and like there's this whole long structure, but we can just copy it to target blank and paste it and close it. So it will get href, it will get forwarded to USE-IT.travel Wrocław. I can delete it because it was my testing. Target blank, so to the new tab. And what will happen?
You will have the link with the whole URL, but without any interesting text on it.
No. Nothing has changed. But why nothing has changed? So we have this h1, it's with something in it, but we have closed the referencing, so the a tag or a element, but there is nothing in it. So when we are to put an S, it would appear like right here. It would be S link to USE-IT Europe Wrocław. But we can close it after this h1 tag. So will it now be a link? I'm feeling like Dora in here. So yeah, this is now a link. We can open it. Yay. But normally a link would be by default blue, right? And when we hover over it, it wouldn't change its colors. So how did I do it? Because in here the only thing the only styling that I've changed was this width of our USE-IT logo. We made it either bigger or smaller. But if I, for example, yeah. So this is how our website would look like if I wouldn't use any styling. So we have our hi, we have another div with the website, something at our header, PPP, and use it. So this is where we start using our CSS. So we are opening a new chapter in here. So do you have any short questions for now? Yeah. So let's continue. Let's open the template.css. So it looks a bit. So we have our, for example, IMG, for example. So IMG is our, oh, sorry, I didn't save my changes. So IMG is our, once again, nothing. So this is our IMG, and yeah, we can, sorry. So once again, sorry. So let's get to the link. Sorry for that. I got distracted. So let's get to a link and a visited. So what is A? So A is our link. This is what it's most used for. So href, then the name of the website, something in it, and so on and so on. So this is color, but color of what? So the HTML and CSS, the main thing that we are putting in here, like on every website, most things are either photos or text, but in most web pages like USE-IT Europe, it's mainly text, right? So to make it a bit shorter, we use instead of text color, we use color. So in here, we can write, for example, red, because why not? Okay, so now our age would be, and please, for now, ignore this link and visit it. And now we have our color, right? Changed. Our text color by default. So we save it and reset it. And now every a parameter, a thing, a block would be red color. But how many of you have seen or used, like, I think we have a lot of designers in here, like, for example, FF00FF. How many of you did see something like that? I don't see any hands, I don't hear any voices. So I will assume that no one has seen this obnoxious thing. So this is how our colors in the websites are expressed. So of course we can write, for example, black, and it will work, right? But what if we want a very specific color, like something that is green but a bit lighter, like there could be something like sky blue or something, but we want a specific color. So when we look for colors, like for example on this website, which I truly love, like when you type color calculator into the website, it produces colors that are matching, that are looking nice with each other. So complementary colors, for example. Yeah, so this is how the web and the designing world, and for example, like I'm also a video editor, this is how we express our colors most of the time. So we have this itsy bitsy thing. This is hash, and we have R. So two letters, two symbols, A5, G, and B. But why do you have this A thing, F thing, and so on? Because it isn't decimal, right? There aren't enough colors, enough letters, symbols to express this. Like we can make it shorter, right? So sorry, I was getting distracted. So this is how bright would the pixel be lit. So for example, 0, 0. So the red pixel would be black. FF, which is the maximum value, means the blue pixel would be as bright as possible. And 0, 0, then the color would be green, and then blue, RGB, red, green, blue. And blue pixels wouldn't like that, but you can just take those colors. Oh, sorry, it's really early for me. Just can get those colors, like for example this nice green, and you can paste it in here. Great. So now our links would be this color, this lime green. Then when you look at the top, right? We could get every div and every h1, every p, everything. We could paste like, for example, this hex color. Like we can paste this one and then this one and then this one and then this one, because why not? And what I'm trying to tell you here that it's not really effective. So when you, let's say you have a really, really big website, right? You have 10 million things in it, right? And for every type of thing, you paste a color, but you get a rebranding, or you want to change the color of the text. What do? Like, for example, you have to change every little bit in every parameter, right? So you had to change this 1,000 times. Let's say we have 1,000,000 different things. But what you can do, you can get variables. So this is what I've done for you already. This is USE-IT colors, which I got. So instead of hex, so for example, FF00AA, you get RGB. So from 0 to 255, and you can use it. And for example, for the whole body, right? For the whole body, the color of the text is text black. And it's 33, 33, 33. So the pixel light up only a bit. So 33 of 33, but the 255 is top value. But we can change this to 255, right? In here, and the whole text on the whole website would change. So this is our variable that we can use. I need a short break, like 2 minutes. Do you have any questions right now? Because I'm getting like all over the place right now.
No worries. We are also almost getting to the end of the presentation. So do you have some else you would like to? No, I mean, at 10:30 there will be a break, 10-minute break.
Yeah, sorry, because HTML and CSS, it's like really, really deep. What I want you to do after we end this whole webinar, to just go and have fun with it. But like, I won't teach you, like, it isn't possible even in 8 hours to teach you how to code everything, how to know the syntax of A and H1, and how to use divs, how to make it go right, left, and so on. What we have is W3 schools, which is the coolest thing ever. So, for example, what would we want to put in here? Like how to write HTML email, like how to insert, for example, a button. How to insert a button with changing button colors, right? And this is a great website which shows you, which gives you an examples, for example, right? So we can get a button and put it in here, and we can get another button and paste it in here, right? And we should have gotten a button that is, sorry. So we got a button which is blue. So when you want to get your better, or just at least start working with HTML, you want to visit W3 schools, and when you want to insert something, like you want to get a map from Google Maps and you don't know how to do it, like W3 schools will teach you. And when you want to get two columns in HTML, you can try it yourself, and you can just have fun with it, or copy the whole thing and build your website from the with two columns, right? Which is really responsive, and just go and have fun with it. And the last thing that I want to show you is yeah, never gonna give you up. A lot of websites have this share thing, and you can put it on your website. So a lot of websites like Twitter and, for example, YouTube, just give you some text that you can just copy and paste in your. Let's say, let's put it into our div or under it. Yeah, and now we have our YouTube video, which we cannot see because of the restrictions on other websites, but most of the time it works. Sorry for that. I could have chosen a video that works. But you can open from another website, like you can put a YouTube video in it, which is really cool when you want to build a website. Like, for example, USE-IT Europe uses Google Maps, right? With its own custom layout from USE-IT. Like, this is how it works. So you can just copy, paste, and follow instructions. And although it was like all over the place, because whole HTML and CSS and everything is all over the place, I hope that at least when you open a website and you inspect it and you just have fun with it, you more or less know what something does, and how it's built, and so on. So in the future, when you design a website, it's really crucial that first you get a piece of paper or a drawing board and just draw the blocks what you want to have, because when you put something in here, in here, in here, in here, it won't work. So you want to work and think about the blocks and how they would respond to resizing and so on, how they would swap. And I hope that now you understand why you should do it like that. So think about blocks. If programming, when HTML, CSS is something really not for you, like, it's okay. You at least know how to communicate with a developer on the basic level. But if you want to get deeper into the HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, which is a programming language that also a browser uses, like, get to W3 schools. You can just sit there for hours, and that's what I do in my free time most, like, really, really often. So let's start some questions.
Don't speak all at the same time.
Yeah. Also, yeah, like you see that writing a website is a lot of work, right? And if you want to host or build a website, design it, you don't need to use HTML, CSS, or anything, because we have another tools that my friends will talk about in a minute, like WordPress, which are really cool. But when you know how the HTML works, then you can just understand it and design better web pages and find problems and solutions quicker. Yes, Iris?
Yes. So I also think like learning HTML is in a way also like playing around. What would you recommend to do to go further in it if I want to play around with it myself?
First, I would go into the inspect in here, right?
Yeah.
And if you see something like div, header, h1, nav, ul, li, like just pure curiosity, like look what it's doing, and if you cannot work out what it's doing and you cannot understand it, like what's the difference between div and li, like go to W3 Schools or YouTube and they will explain it to you.
Nice, yeah.
And also there is a sources tab. So when you have a website like USE-IT Europe isn't just one file. You have also icons, images for cities, CSS. You can like look up CSS and how it's how every element or type of element would be described. You have images in here. I think some some JavaScript. Cool. And these are two of the things that you wanna look into. And on the more simpler pages, more advanced pages, and so on.
Yeah. Okay.
Or
Nice.
like if you like something like university teaching, like go step by step through W3 university schools. I don't do it. I do it just by pure curiosity.
Nice. Okay, thank
Eva?
you.
Hey.
Hey.
Hey. My question is, we ran into a phase in funded project where we also should design a platform. I don't know here knows what I would be talking about. And we got this advice from an expert about how to how to proceed with our platform, and also he mentioned that there could be plugins to use for the website, and those could be either taken from a library or coded. Is there usually a language to use for that, or it could be in any languages, or how does that work? Sorry for a stupid question, because I really don't know what I'm talking about.
So you have when we end this webinar, hopefully you will know what you wanna do. So if you want to use, for example, WordPress, which is really easy, really powerful, easy to work with, easy to implement some changes also by a newbie that hasn't seen a line of code in their entire life. Or you can design a website that doesn't use WordPress. The downside to it is you have to get a great design at first, and you want to know exactly how it would look like, how it would respond. And when you design a web page, most of your time would be just working out like how should it stretch, how like on bigger screens, or how should it get smaller on a phone. Like making a responsive website is really difficult. Like for example, in here, you have two divs. Like you have three divs. You have use it, you have maps, you have this, and you have this what cities and map, right? So there is a minimal width of the block, and when it gets too small, it pops underneath, right? Or at least it's what it did. Oh, right, in here, right? So making a website responsive so nothing disappears, for example, like in here, the cities do disappear. Like it's really difficult to do it. If you have a plan and you want to have like 3 pages on your website, like it's cool to do HTML. It would be a challenge. If I were you, really, I would start with WordPress. And if you want to do some custom changes, like add a specific type of button or a specific, like you want to throw in a YouTube video, yeah, you do it with HTML, CSS, or JavaScript. But the main part, which is designing and putting blocks together, it's really visual and easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Okay, so those plugins would be anyway designed in HTML, CSS, or PHP. That's what you...
Yeah, those plugins would be written in HTML, CSS, and PHP and JavaScript.
Okay, thank you.
One last question.
Proceed, Adrian.
No, I mean, I was asking if anyone has any last question, because at 10:40 would be the time for a quick 10-minute break before the presentation from Marcin.
I'm seeing if there is something really cool. Yeah, my recommendation is just to have fun with HTML, CSS, and so on, but do it with WordPress or any other template or program to creating websites.
All right. In that case, thank you very much, Hercules, for the presentation today. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And let's have a 10-minute break, and let's be back at 10:50 for the presentation from Marcin, regarding no-code and low-code alternatives to classical web development. See you soon.
Thank you.
So on the second part of this seminar, we'll have Marcin, which will be talking about the no-code and low-code alternatives to the classical web development. Let's maybe wait one more minute, and then I'll pass the floor to you, Marcin. You are a bit muffled.
Is it a bit better now?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Just let's wait at 10:51 just to give it one extra minute, and then we can start. All right, so welcome back. Marcin, you may go. Thank you.
All right, so let me just show my screen to begin with. All right, you should be able to see it now.
Yes.
All right, so get it off from the way. Right, so like before we get started, just a small technical announcement from my side. Sorry for my voice. I might have got some cold last night, and I'm like, yeah, I might be taking some breaks to blow my nose. So sorry for that. And yeah, today I wanted to talk about some no-code and low-code alternatives towards like classical web design and development process. So Hercules gave you a foundation. He talked about HTML, CSS, a bit of JavaScript. He gave you a glimpse of what the whole web lies, like what is the basement, what is the foundation of the whole web. And in my presentation, we'll sort of jump 2 steps ahead and actually see what we can do when we skip those like coding parts. But obviously it all runs on code. So it's very crucial to know that foundations, because whenever you'll like reach some limits of the no-code technologies, you'll anyways need to get your hands on the code. You'll always need to inspect some codes. So these are like, it's still very vital to understand how the code works. However, there are some alternatives that may speed up the process a bit or make it more accessible to build a website. So let's start with defining or like a short overview of what's the like a regular web design or web creation process, because like these are actually 2 separate things, right? The web design is creating the website, meaning that you design it, you build some mockups, you build some prototypes, and then you hand it off to your developer to actually build it. So this is the web development process, the other part. So usually when we build a website, we begin with identifying the purpose of the website, and we define some target audience to actually, so we define who is actually going to use it so that we can use appropriate design patterns for the website. Then we jump into some wireframing. We design the website in a very low fidelity way, meaning that we use some basic shapes, basic colors to lay down the structure of the website. And this is a step that I would also like you to do before creating your used website. So to lay down the structure of the website, to define the information architecture of the website before you get to coding or designing it or whatever. Like it's very easy to actually get trapped into going straight to code and skipping those design steps, but then it'll be a mess and you'll be regretting that you skipped all those design exercises. It's because like changing even a small thing in code takes 3 times more time than actually doing it on the design stage. And doing it on paper, you have like, if you start with some paper wireframes or even digital wireframes, it's up to your preference actually. Like you can iterate a lot more and you can like test a lot more ideas before you actually start to build.
Ah bah oui, bien sûr.
All right. So then the next step would be to actually do the UI design, which is the high fidelity sort of visual design. Then you include your website. Then you add some colors to your website, some typography, some illustrations or photos. That's the stage to do it. Then you would usually hand it off to your developers or a development agency, or you can build it yourself using HTML and CSS, just as Hercules told you. However, it would be a bit of a tedious process. Like there are some ways to skip that writing all those lines of HTML. Obviously, you could do it if you want to have more control over your website, but building a complex website would take a lot of time if you were to build it with some basic tags and you know, like without using some libraries, without using some plugins as well, so or some pre-built UI kits. So this is possible. You can do it, but it takes time. So this is usually the most costly part of the whole process. Then once you have your code ready, once you have your website built, you would need to test it and assure that its quality is within like the expected constraints. You also should test it against some usability, standards, accessibility standards, namely the WCAG. This is like the global standard for making things accessible for people with disabilities. So this is also an important part, especially when you're acquiring some external funding for your website. Then usually the founding party, the organization that gives you actually money for it, expects the website to be built with those accessibility standards in mind, and they might actually want you to like prove that your website complies with those standards. Then once you have your website tested and ready to go, you need to deploy it to some chosen web hosting platform. It can be anything like there are multiple ways of hosting a website. That's the topic for another conversation actually. So we won't go too much into detailing here. You also would ideally want to apply some analytics to maybe set up a Google Analytics account for the website, maybe a Search Console account for the website, so that you actually can monitor the traffic on your website as well as its search engine optimization performance, the SEO performance. So like just a bit of a explainer in here. SEO is the whole, I guess you might know it. It's just the whole process of optimizing your website so that it can be visible on the top pages of the SERP, which are the search engine results pages. It's usually a Google results pages, so you type in a query on Google and you get some results off of it. Of course, now the situation is changing a bit since more and more people are using ChatGPT and BART and other sort of like conversational ways of searching for information, but still Google and its search engine is the most common one. So we want to focus on that as well. So like you want to monitor your SEO performance, meaning that whether you gain positions, whether you lose positions, because like with that monitoring, you can actually optimize your website so that it reaches optimum position. It's just simply more visible. So that if someone wants to type in it in the browser in Google, use it Wrocław, let's say, for instance, then so that you know that your website will be the first to appear in his or her search results. And one more step that is usually part of the process is the maintenance. And it's when it comes to the websites built with code, especially those built with like plain HTML and CSS, or the ones that are built with some libraries, it's very important to actually update those libraries, update those packages of code that someone else have written and that you actually use on your website, so that you use the latest versions, as they're usually containing some security updates. This is important not to have your website infected. So there's like, because then you have a lot more issues. You have to go to the backups, you have to restart your website from scratch. Sometimes you can lose some data and so on and so on. So it's also an important part of the process to actually maintain the website once you build it. So as you can see, this process is quite complex, and especially the part with coding and deployment and maintenance can actually be quite expensive if you want to hire some professionals to do it. And so why can this classical approach not be the best one? Because the multiple skills are needed. You have, if you want to build a very high quality website, you need a designer usually, you need a developer. You might actually need a separate person to do the QA work, the quality assurance work. The other thing is that if you have all those specialists on board, you need to actually manage them. You need to coordinate the whole process, which is also some other additional research that is needed. You also need to, there's a chance that you like, the more people you get into the process, the more ideas you have, but then the vision of the website, the initial idea of the website may be a bit altered from what it was up front. So there's also some issues, obviously higher costs and complicated maintenance, since like the code requires like every website that is built is actually using code, but when you build it yourself without like technical expertise, then the maintenance can be a bit more painful than when you use some sort of ready-made tools or like even some ways to skip the coding part, basically. So like the node code approach, of course, there should be some definition in the presentation. So there you go. So this is the way of building a website without like extensive code knowledge. So there are multiple tools to actually build your websites without knowing the codes with. We'll jump to those in a minute, but I just wanted to point out why the no-code or low-code approach can be useful. And like, by the way, the difference between no-code and low-code is that like there are some tools, platforms that let you build a website without using code, but they give you the possibility to do so if you want to do so. So for instance, because like the whole issue with the no-code platforms is that sometimes they restrict your flexibility when it comes to, for instance, design or of the web page, or sometimes they are just insufficient. They are not, they just don't give you enough flexibility, enough customization possibilities to achieve your goal. So some of these platforms actually enable you to include your code snippets so that you can do the basic stuff quicker without like the need to write each line of code by yourself. But then if you want to actually customize your website that is in a way which is not like foreseen by the producer of the platform, you can do it. You can add some custom code. So this is the low code approach, which requires you to understand how the code works, but takes the majority of code writing from you, but enables you to do so if you want to. So why these approaches can be useful? Well, they mainly increase the speed and the pace of work, right? You don't need a whole team to build a website. There can be just one person that can be the founder of the USE-IT idea, let's say, and they can like sort of transcribe their vision, their idea straight into the website without some additional people in between. It reduces development costs. That's the biggest, I guess, factor. So you don't need to hire a whole team of developers or a separate agency or software company or whatever. And then it also democratizes web development. Like anyone can do this. Of course, it's very important to understand that although anyone could create a website, it doesn't mean that it'll be a top-notch website right away. It's because like building a website and designing it, actually like designing part also takes some skill. You need to know some fundamentals about design, how to lay out the whole website, how to structurize it so that it's understandable, how to make it usable, how to use colors, and so on and so on. But at least with the no-code approach, you can get rid of the technical knowledge to some extent, obviously, but you'll still need the creativity, the sort of sense of aesthetics, so that you essentially build something that looks good and it's usable. So yeah, it democratizes web development. However, we need to remember that it still takes some skill. Like it's not like yeah, anyone should now build their own websites, because like then the web wouldn't look like wouldn't look too good, let's say. And of course, the other thing is that the no-code approaches promote innovation, just because like you shorten the time span of the project, so it gives you can experiment a lot more, you can build apps quicker, you can build more innovative things without the need of like putting a lot of money into it upfront. So this is cool as well. So right now we have multiple no-code, low-code platforms to choose from. So these are essentially the platforms that let you use drag and drop editors for most part to build your website. You simply drag some elements, you lay down those elements, you include some text, some images, some icons, and they render the website for you. They host the website for you, although some platforms actually give you the possibility to download the whole code package and host it somewhere else. It's, for instance, the case of the WEBFLOW platform. But all of these platforms are essentially visual editors that let you build a website using divs, using HTML, using CSS underneath, like under the bonnet, but you don't need to see that code. You can just drag and drop some elements, lay down those elements as well. Later on in the presentation, I will jump into two of these platforms, namely the EditorX and the WEBFLOW platform that I've used. I've had some experiences with those platforms. I'll just show you around, just give you some basic understanding of what's happening there, and I'll as well give you some idea what you can build with those platforms. Like, I should have stated that up front, but like the general idea of this presentation is to equip you with some tools to give you the overview of what's possible to do with the no-code and low-code world, and to give you an idea of all of these platforms that are available, which ones are actually worth trying, so that like when you actually want to build your user website during the hackathon, you just have a list of like solutions with their pros and cons, and you just choose the one that is most suitable to you. Because like 1 hour is not enough to like teach you how to build a website even without using code. Like Hercules gave you some basic understanding of how the code works, but like there is so much more to learn. And like with those platforms, you actually can skip that part of learning. But even so, like each of these platforms has some learning curve to be addressed. You need to learn how to use the interface and so on. But I guess it's definitely way easier than learning how to code the website from scratch yourself. By the way, if any one of you has some experience with each of these platforms, just can you like write it on the chat or something, or because then I'll know whether then I'll know how much into detail I can actually go. Yes, Adrian.
We did have the jump board at the beginning. I'm not sure if you were already here, but we had the question if anyone has used a few web builders before, and a few people wrote that there's 5 stickers. So WebNode, WordPress, Elementor, Wix, a little bit of Wix, a little bit of WordPress. So mainly WordPress and Wix, and a little bit of WebNode.
All right. Okay. So like WordPress will be covered in a whole separate part of this tutorial later on. I guess the Thomas will be talking about the editor there. Wix is a platform that is like, I would say, the most popular right now. I can't remember the numbers if it's like this, but like it's quite well known, but it has a limited design flexibility. Like there are mostly ready-made templates that you can use. You can tweak some things, but you don't have that many tools to actually customize this website. So I don't want to cover Wix as much. I'll give you a bit of a overview in a second, but we'll be focusing on the platforms. Luckily that you haven't tried yet, so I can like give you some other ideas of what's possible. All right, so like I've narrowed down the choice to 8 platforms that I actually find the most interesting for your user website, and we'll like deeply cover 2 of them. But like I've added some pros and cons for each of these platforms, so you have separate like a few slides to actually that you can go through later on. I'll share this presentation with you, obviously, and you can just like go through those pros and cons and sort of identify which platform would be the best. Wix, as I've said, is a very, very popular choice, but when it comes to its like negative sides, it has limited design flexibility, and it sometimes can be expensive. Like we need to talk it a lot more. Like, but there it can be expensive sometimes. Let's say it that way. And on the positive side, it has a lot of actually ready-made templates that you can just use. You can base your website off them, which is a very nice thing. it has a very simple interface. Like the learning curve is quite easy. There's not that much to learn, but as usually, the more like easy to use the solution is, the less customization possibilities you have. And I actually found that Wix-based websites usually tend to have worse performance when it comes to like page loading speeds, which is actually a very important thing when it comes to the positioning of the website, since page loading speed is a ranking factor for Google. So like Google, while placing websites on the search engine results page, it actually takes into account the speed which each of the websites loads. So it's very important to have that website loading very quickly, not only for the usability and the overall user experience, but also for the Google to understand that your website is good enough to be placed in the top positions. So the other good thing about Wix is that you have a free plan available, so that you can try a lot with it, and you can actually even host a website on the free plan. Of course, it comes with some branding, but it can be good enough for some projects. The other platform is EDITOR-X. It's actually a child platform of Wix. It's also built, like, owned by the Wix company, and it's actually now transitioning into a Wix Studio. That's how they call this platform. It's tailored towards agencies, digital agencies that want to build websites for their clients. So by definition, it has a lot more flexibility, a lot more elasticity when it comes to like customizing your website, and you have control over almost like CSS parameters. I will show you that in a minute. And it's, from my perspective, it's great for designers and creative minds that want to have higher flexibility. They want to actually build something not necessarily from a template, but something custom. On the negative side, it is quite expensive when you want to host a proper website on it. And yeah, we have a fewer templates than in the regular Wix, and the learning curve is a bit steeper in here compared to Wix. But I would recommend you to use this one compared to Wix, because like if you build a website in the EDITOR-X, you can actually do the responsiveness of the website like in a correct way, meaning that you're like in the Wix, I've seen multiple websites that behave poorly on the mobile devices, and like EDITOR-X gives you possibilities to actually manipulate the responsiveness properly, so that you can you can actually do it well if you try hard enough. The other one is SQUARESPACE. I haven't used that one, but it's also quite popular. On the positive side, it's SEO friendly, so it's like by default contains some search engine optimization tools that might come in handy. What else? You have some as well, like in all of these platforms, the user interface is more or less friendly. Actually, it's a bit less friendly in the WEBFLOW, but we'll cover that in a minute. And the positive side as well is the excellent customer support. Limited, like the negative sides of SQUARESPACE are the lower number of integrations that you have, and there is as well no free plan available. The other platform that we'll be covering in more detail today is WEBFLOW. I would say it's probably the one platform to go with if you want to create a very high-end website. I might try to show you some examples of like a proper websites built on WEBFLOW. This is a very powerful engine, and you can actually create highly customizable websites with it. You have a very powerful visual editor in here. There's also a free plan available, which is called, you can try it out. You have a lot more customization options than, for instance, in Wix. And there are even some e-commerce capabilities, and you have a built-in CMS. EDITOR-X on the contrary also has some built-in CMS. However, from my experience, I'll show that to you as well in a minute, it's not as intuitive. It's a bit more clunky, I would say. In WebFlow, the CMS part just worked great. So basically the CMS, for those of you that might not know, is a content management system for a website. So like websites usually need to be updated. You need to add some, I don't know, for instance, in the case of the USE-IT Europe website, you might want to add some new cities. So you need to have a separate system to actually manage those entities in the database. So we're a system in which you need to add some more maps to your website, some more cities and so on. So WebFlow actually has it by default. You can actually like define the structure of the CMS. So I also will show that to you in a second. The negative sides is there is less third-party integrations than in some other cases. I wouldn't agree that much with the limited design features because I believe you can do a lot more in WebFlow than in any other platform. But the major con in here is that learning WebFlow actually takes a bit more time than any of other platforms that we have in that in this selection. The other platform is Weebly. Here, like all of these platforms do not differ that much. You also have some intuitive interface in here. You have some customer support, which is supposed to be excellent. It's not like I haven't tried that platform, but it's what I found on the internet about it. The thing is that it's also quite limited when it comes to design. So from my perspective, it's not like that attractive to use, and you don't have as many third-party integrations that you could have, for instance, with Google Sheets or things like this. There's also a platform called DUDA, and it's also similar to DTRX in the sense that it's created for design and creative professionals so that they can achieve what they want, what they have in their imagination. So it's very flexible. You have a lot things to customize. But for instance, the like the basic websites that are in the free version are actually limited when it comes to their functionalities and the design options. So it might be a bit of a negative thing when it comes to that platform. Then you have the WordPress, which is a very powerful engine, and you'll have another part of this seminar related to WordPress. And like WordPress has two sides, I would say. One thing is that it's essentially free. There are some plugins that you have to pay for to build a website, but you can get a lot of things for free. You can get a lot of templates. You can get some visual editors as well. Because like WordPress is essentially it's a platform for creating websites, but you can do it in multiple ways. For instance, what I found in my commercial experience, because we also run a business in which we build custom websites and e-commerces and things like this. What I would advise you to do when it comes to WordPress is if you want to build a website with WordPress, it's worth actually investing in some custom template or like building your own template for the website, because like using those available ones that are there on the market, you can purchase them for, I don't know, $30 or something like this, tends to be very poor when it comes to performance. Like WordPress to quite high extent uses jQuery, like most of the WordPress uses this framework, and this is it's kind of outdated, I would say, but it's like most of the plugins actually use it here. But like it's if you use WordPress, which is a very flexible engine, it comes with a lot of things by default, like out of the box. You have multiple things that you actually don't need for your website. And when you add some visual builders to it, then the performance of the system is affected negatively. So we've been a lot of times in a situation where a client came to us, said, hey, I have that WordPress website. I just need to like change a few things and it's just loading very slowly. And once we took a look in a code, it was so messy that like you couldn't do anything with it, and we had to rewrite the website just because they were using all these visual editors that were easily drag and drop, and like the client was just updating the website themselves, but they do negatively affect the performance. So if I was you and I wanted to use WordPress for my website, because like its backend, its back office, its back office is very intuitive, like it's well known, most of the European at least world uses it, so there's nothing wrong with that. But I would advise you to use it with a custom built template at least, or a custom frontend. So in that situation, your WordPress is just the backend part of the website, and it sends some data over APIs to your frontend part, which is written in React or even like plain HTML, but it's not connected. It's not a monolithic architecture in which you have like both of these parts of the system hosted under like WordPress and with WordPress technology. Like I would advise you to separate the front-end part to some other technology, just because like the WordPress isn't too good when it comes to speed, performance, and actually, yeah, like then maintenance of such WordPress page with multiple plugins, because like the way you build websites on WordPress is usually that you purchase some plugins, you customize them, you add them to your website, then the maintenance of such a page is painful. And like, yeah, just bear that in mind, that it's not the best idea to just use the pre-built templates in WordPress. That's my statement. But you'll have another part of the seminar regarding this. The other platform is DUDA. It's as well kind of similar to DTRX in the sense that it's built for agencies. Like there are like two, like this is the platform that is more for creatives. So it gives you higher flexibility, but this platform turns out to be limiting when it comes to like very custom websites, very big websites. Then it's kind of tough to actually manage those websites within that platform. It's great for simple landing pages, for like one-pager websites. Then it's good, and then you have a lot of design options to choose from, and you have some responsive templates as well. So here you have as well a table with some side-by-side comparison of all of these mentioned above. I mean, I'm not going to get that like through it right now. It's no point. You'll have the presentation. You can compare those platforms yourself later on. And I have some other resources before like going into practice. I have some other resources that might come in handy to you if you want to build your user website. So the first one is Bubble. It's a no-code editor creator, but it enables you to create a web application or even a mobile application. So it's a level of complexity more than building a website, right? Building a website is like level 1, and level 2 is building a mobile app or a web application with different screens and so on. So there are some options, no code and low code options to actually build your custom applications as well. The other option for that is Retool. It's a low code solution. It requires some code knowledge, some technical knowledge, but it's a very powerful tool to build, for instance, some internal tools. If you have some, I don't know, some databases that you use, I guess some of you may use Airtable or some Google Sheets or some Excel files. You can actually move them to Retool, build your own custom applications, small applications to manipulate those data so that you ensure the security of the information. And it's, it lets you build some internal tools for optimizing your work. It's kind of useful for that. The other tool is Figma. This is super important for the design part. You can use as well the Adobe XD or some Sketch or Sketch software, depending on your preferences. But once again, I just wanted to highly encourage you to design your website before jumping into code, or even before jumping into building it using a no-code solution, because it's super easy to get trapped in a way that you start building something and then you just end up tweaking it, and it takes a lot more time because you couldn't imagine all those details up front. So it's just simpler and more efficient to design some layout of the website in some design tool, for instance Figma, which is, I guess it's free for the starter plan as well. And only then, when you have it designed, transfer it to a no-code software or to code, depending on your preferences and budget. The other tool that is nice to use is Zapier. It lets you automate different systems, connect them with each other. So there are some, it's kind of powerful for building automation, sending data between systems. You can, for instance, build an automation which, I don't know, sends you an email when someone signs up on your website to learn more about the USE-IT map, let's say. The step up from Zapier is the if then DUDA. This is the platform that is in the middle here. It's actually a bit more technical, so that you can even automate your home with it. It's actually very cool. It's like all based around the if then sort of type of actions, and you can build some custom workflows here as well. This is super cool for like a bit more advanced workflows when you want to automate your like organization in some more advanced ways. The other tool is Miro. I guess most of you actually use it. It's super cool. There's actually a free alternative because like Miro's pricing is kind of hefty, I would say. There is a free alternative called, I believe, Milanote. It's actually worth taking a look. It's very similar in terms of the functionality to Miro, but it's free, so you can like use it on some non-commercial projects as well. And then you have the Interaction Design Foundation and the Nielsen Norman Group. These are super cool websites to learn how to design and to learn some basic design principles, design patterns to use while designing a website. So before you start to actually build a website during the hackathon, I actually advise you to go through those websites. They have like their paid versions, but there is also a lot of free content there, so that like once you read through that content, you understand some basic principles when it comes to web design, because like that's the topic for a whole another webinar, right? How to design a website. Definitely not easy to cover within an hour. So these are some just links that you might find useful to go through before actually starting to design your website, so that you know that the website that you'll design is up to the part with the modern web design standards. And there is the W3 schools, which Hercules already mentioned. Again, super cool app, super cool platform that lets you learn code for free and see it in real. Adrian.
There was just a question in the chat. If you could remind again the free version of Miro. What was the name?
The Milanote. I'll actually, because since this is the end of the presentation, the end of boring slides that I have, and we'll be jumping to the more interesting part. This is this. I'll just show it in the chat maybe, so that you have it. Oh, there's the chat. Yeah, so it's actually very cool. It's kind of, I would say, a little bit more difficult to use, meaning the steering and how it works, but it gives almost the same flexibility. It's great for creating some mood boards. Mood board is a tool that you also want to can actually use before like designing website. It's essentially like a set of different inspirations for your visual part of the website. It can also be used for other ways, but we're focusing on the websites here. So you essentially like go through the internet, you search for some different inspirations for the visual part of your website, you collect them in one place side by side, so that then you can like look at them all in one place. And like that's almost something like you can see it in here. And you can see all those visual inspirations in one place, and you can then cross out the one that like stand out too much or that you don't like. You can add some more. You can go through that mood board iteratively, and this could help you build an identity, a visual identity of what you want to build before actually mood board. It's the yeah, it's begins with the mood. Yeah, exactly it is. So this is the it's a very handy tool to actually define a visual language that you want to follow throughout your website before even you start to design it or even develop it. So that's one more thing worth noting. So enough of theory. We've covered quite a lot of like different platforms. I hope you have some understanding of what are the pros and cons of them. You can then sort of go back to the presentation and just see it. You know, you have some data to compare those platforms, and then you can use the one that actually could work for you. When it comes to the platform itself, we'll start with the EDITOR-X, which is in the process of transferring to Wix Studio. And as you can see, this is some template that I've just used. So I actually have created one website in that editor for my friend. But since it wasn't too advanced, I decided to just start with some template and show you around. So just before we start tweaking some things in the editor, let me try to publish this website. As you can see, I've just clicked the button, and then it's already available on the web. And like I can share you the link to it, and you'll be able to actually see it in practice. As you can see, there is some animations. There are some sub pages. There are some text animations. It's a one pager. It doesn't contain, I believe, yeah, it's just a contact form that it contains. That it's like it doesn't have too many different pages, but it's just a one pager. And in general, from my experience with the EDITOR-X, it's more tailored towards one pager. You have some option in here to actually create some other pages, and you can like link them together. You can create some navigation. You can go between those pages using some top navigation. But like it's the tool isn't intended to build like complicated websites with multiple pages. It's easy to sense that it's like more about building simple landing pages, and for that it's actually kind of a decent fit. So starting, like as you can see, it's maybe not the nicest website visually, but it's like it has some like interactive elements and things. So it's a regular website, let's say. And so jumping to the editor, there are like three major sections that you have. You have the sort of the management panel. You can actually go to your some settings of your website. I'm sorry, do we have time to like 11:50? Is that correct?
Yeah, give or take. I was planning the break at 11:50, but if you need a bit more, I think we can squeeze in.
I guess I just need to speed up. So that's okay. So yeah, you have some management console for your website. You can actually, it's kind of cool about the editor is that you can plug in some ready-made tools. You can just like link your Google Ads account, and you can see some data from it in here. You can monitor the SEO in here. The EDITOR-X also, as most of the no-code builders, comes with a built-in analytics platform. You can like follow your traffic on the website. So this is kind of cool. You have the sort of the management console in here. I'm not going to that to go through that too much into detail. Just wanted to let you know that it's here. You can manage your website. There is actually something nice called dev mode, which I haven't tried out yet, but it lets you, in theory, add some custom code as well to your website, which might be useful for extending the full functionality of the EDITOR-X. So beginning from the right corner, here are some elements that you can use to actually build a website with. So let's say, I don't know, we want to have another title in here. We can just drag and drop it. It's the whole structure of the website built in the EDITOR-X is wrapped around sections. So As you can see, I had to attach it into one of these sections. You can see those sections in the layers panel here. You have the sections. Sections are just containers, like sections, like I guess they are self-explanatory, but you use the sections to manage the way the website behaves on the tablet and mobile resolutions. So as you can see, here I am right now, I'm in the desktop version of the website, but when so let's just maybe finish adding the title. You can give it a name, so maybe subtitle that you want to complement the main title here in this section. You can actually even use some AI options to create the text for you. You can animate how the text appear on the site, which is kind of cool. Like the animating capabilities of this tool are quite limited, but they are easy to use. You just use the type of animations that you want to use. You can comment on the title, which is kind of handy if you work in a team on a website. You can share some comments, share some thoughts right on it. You have some more options in here. You can hide it, for instance, on some certain types of devices. So for instance, maybe you don't want to show that title on the mobile screens, depending on your preference. But so yeah, you can just, it's very simple. It works with drag and dropping. But then what EDITOR-X is kind of good with is that it lets you design the way, the responsiveness of the website. As you can see right now, I started to shrink the width of the website. So currently it's 1300 pixels. So it's the resolution that you would find on a small laptop screen, let's say. So that's how the website will look like then. As you can see, this template already came with like, apart from my heading that I just added here for testing purposes. As you can see, like the whole website, the further I narrow the screen, it changes its layout, it adapts so that everything is readable and is placed in a sensible way. So right now I cross the mobile breakpoint. Like breakpoint essentially is another whole another concept. It's a screen width at which you apply different layout. So there are three breakpoints in here defined. So this is the desktop screen, the tablet. Here the breakpoint is 1000 pixels. So this layout will apply to all screen widths that are less than 1000 pixels. These are usually tablet screens have like at most 1100 pixels. And then mobile layout will apply to screens that are less than 750 pixels. And yeah, and so like for each of these breakpoints, you can actually add some custom breakpoint, which is very cool and a very handy option for like customizing how the website shrinks for the mobile devices, which is obviously crucial nowadays. You have to, your website should be readable and should work well on each of the devices that are found on the market. So it's very nice that you can add your custom breakpoints, so you have more control over how the responsiveness of the website works. And yeah, and the good thing is that for all of these breakpoints, you can customize the layout. So for instance, the tablet layout, as you can see, this box with some specs is placed up here, whereas on the mobile, the designer of this template decided to put it down there. It's also part of the information architecture. If you have less screen space, it's better to sort of move the less important information a bit lower on the screen, even if they are like below the fold. So the fold line is another piece of terminology. The fold line is, for this case, this line here. So everything that's above the lower edge of the screen of my display will be called above the fold. So this is the part that is visible above the fold, and this is sometimes used to define like what should be visible in the first load of the website. So So that's yeah. So sometimes it's better to actually hide some less important information below the fold, so that you don't like have the main the landing page, the main screen that is visible to so you don't have too many information there simply. So like here, because the screen is much wider, we can, you know, like have a bit more fun with the layout. We can do something like more creative. But for the mobile device, it's sometimes, if we were to put those stats in here, it wouldn't be readable. It will be too much information. So that's another sort of like the another principle with the design, that you need some white space between the sections. You need to have them separated visually so that they are easily, so that you can easily identify which section is which goals belong to which section. But that's again a whole another topic for the web design class rather than web development class. So yeah, that you can find some more information on the Norman Nilsson Group website and some other tutorials. So as you can see, like we have some more options in the editor. As I can see that like I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to get through them real quickly. What's nice about the editor is that you can define your styles globally. So you can define some text styles. As you can see, it's very plain here, but it's a heading one. And you can reuse them for your pages, for different pages. You can sort of create a design system within an EditorX, which lets you reuse your styles, your text styles, your colors as well. As you can see, you have some color palette in here. And if you want to, for instance, change your, I don't know, modern color in here, you can do it in the adjustment inspector panel. As you can see, here are the options for the button. I can change the border of it. I can change corners of it. I can do multiple tweaks, visual tweaks to the button. And I can, instead of choosing it from the color picker every time, which is kind of inconvenient, or having to paste the hexadecimal value of the color, which Hercules taught you about, I can just choose one of the predefined color that in this case come with the template, but I can define them as well so that I ensure that my design is consistent when it comes to using colors. But I always use the same color palette, so I can, as you can see, adjust some color of this button. And one more thing that I wanted to mention, let me just see if there's, yeah, as you can see, you can also use some plugins in here. These are the, like, you wouldn't see any code behind those plugins. These are just some visual plugins that you can use. You can actually even create a e-commerce store using the EditorX or the Wix, but I haven't tested that. You can add a CMS in here, but I'll show that to you in a minute in the case of the WEBFLOW. But one more thing that I wanted to understand I wanted you to understand regarding the EditorX is the way it uses the layout. So essentially, if we go to the desktop screen, the EditorX uses columns to create layout. It's sort of similar to what you would do normally with divs in the plain HTML, but it has some weird approach to it, I would say. So you define that, for instance, this text is within the column, which takes one unit. As you can see, like you have 70 pixels spacing from the left and from the right. Then you have a few more columns, and you have like in the relative units in here, so that when you shrink the page, like yeah, so these columns take the same percentage of space instead of like fixed value, which is in here. So the whole concept of responsiveness of the website is managed through the use of columns. And when I assign a text to this column, when I place it into a container, for instance, which has its own columns to manipulate how the text is placed in here, But if the text is assigned to this column, it means that it always stick within that column within its given width, as you can see. Now the column is a bit narrower, and the text has adjusted. So that's the main principle of how the responsiveness works in the DTRX. And what I've mentioned also in the presentation, I believe, is that you have almost CSS-like parameters to use here. As you can see, you're using width, height, the minimum width, minimum height. You can tweak each of the column, each of the text, using almost like CSS parameters, which steeps the learning curve a bit because you need to understand how the containers work. Because like web is essentially built of, like the websites are containers within containers within containers. They are all like boxes. And you have to understand how those boxes work with each other to actually use a proper layout. When it is a fluid layout or a fixed layout, when you have to add some minimum width and so on. So that's also worth looking at the W3 schools. They have some good explanation of how the divs work. So since we're running out of time, I guess it'll be it for the DTRX. I just very quickly want you to show you around the WEBFLOW, which is the editor that is, in my opinion, a bit more advanced to learn, but it's very worth learning, I would say. So I also have some template that I found on the WEBFLOW market, which is free apparently. And as you can see, it's actually a proper website. The one is also, maybe just don't look at the scrolling effect in here. It's just my screen doing some weird things. But as you can see, there are pages. You can go to some company page. You can go to you can browse some job offers as well in here. You can probably see even the details of the offer. This is actually a much more complex website that has been built in the WEBFLOW editor. And what is important is that I wanted to show you, because like, as I've said, the DTRX has some CMS functionality, but it's quite limited. Whereas here, if you go to the left panel, you have the CMS option. You have the collection of job posts. And as you can see, you have a table essentially, which is a fraction of a database that you can tweak from here. You can add some new job posts. So transferring that into your USE-IT context. For instance, for the global USE-IT website, the CMS could be used to add new cities, to do it without the need of a developer, to adjust the website every time a new city is added to the website. I'm not sure how this functions right now, but as you can see, this CMS has some, and it's all customizable. I mean, you can create a collection, you can define the fields of it, then you can use the entities, the records from this collection to actually be displayed on the website based on some parameters. So that's super cool. It really makes the website management easier. You can actually restrict the access to WEBFLOW to only the editing of the content. So if you don't want someone to mess with your design, you can let them go only into the editing mode. And that's where they'll be able to edit each of the texts, to maybe update some information of the website and so on. So the updating is a lot easier. As you can see, publishing is also very easy. You can just publish it on a WEBFLOW domain. As well, you can download the code of the, so it's also already available here on the internet. I can show you the link as well. You can see it simply works. Obviously, it's not as fast to load as a custom website would be, but it's good enough. It's good enough. It probably needs some more optimization. And you can as well, the same with DTRX, other custom domain, it's not a problem, but I guess it's only in the paid plan. But you can also download the code of the website and use it and host it somewhere else, totally like apart from the WEBFLOW. Very brief tour of the editor maybe. When it comes to the editor, you have the main panel, you have the navigator. The Webflow is a bit more complex and tougher to learn because it's like, if I've said the editor X uses some CSS-like editing parameters, here it's simply CSS. So you need to know what is the margin, what is the padding. You need to know different types of layouts. For instance, the flex layout, the box layout, the flexbox layout. You need to understand the CSS, how it works, how it affects the layout, to be able to use the Webflow efficiently. Simply, you have some you have the concept of parent and child in the container. All of these rectangular things are divs, which can be created inline using a tagging code, as Hercules showed, or can be just drag and drop. And as you can see, it's all, again, boxes within boxes within boxes, and like manipulating those boxes to actually be placed in proper positions on the layout, in this case, requires some CSS knowledge. So the learning curve is a bit steeper, but as you can see, the effects of the website that you can create are much better. Actually, later on, I'll try to maybe send some more websites that I found that were built using Webflow on the chat, so that you can see to what extent you can actually flex the Webflow, and to what extent what are the limitations, what can you build using it, because yeah, there's actually a lot you can build. It's very an interesting piece of technology. So here we have the navigator panel. Coming back to the tour as well, similarly as on the editor X, here you can change the layout of a page. This is the job posting page, so it's a very simple layout, just a line of text. You can add some custom breakpoints as well. This is also possible. You can customize how the text looks like. But then on the right side, you have the presentation, the preview panel, the preview mode that lets you like preview the page without the need to publish it. And you have the whole style adjustment pane, in which you define the spacings, define the layout, define the sizing, define the typography parameters, colors, backgrounds, things like this, or even the effects. And for instance, what is very cool about the Webflow is that it lets you create a lot more advanced animations. Like, I actually don't think I have enough time to show that to you. But yeah, you can actually use it to create animations almost like with some After Effects using keyframes. You have a lot more flexibility towards animating your page as compared to Editor X. Here you simply can choose one of the options, and you can really manipulate those options. There's even some preview of how the animation will look like. In Webflow, you might not get the preview, but you can control the animations in a lot more detail. And the one more concept that I wanted to mention before I finish is that Webflow uses something called selectors, which are also used in the CSS. So for instance, if you had that A tag in the HTML, which stands for link, and you created a cascade style sheet, which is the CSS file with some different like classes, then the classes, so the class is the same as the selector. Let's simplify it that way. And you can add the, so we can state, I guess I need to just give you the concept very quickly here. So let's say that this is my CSS file, right? If I say that the, not sure if the notation is like this, but it's not that important for now. This is the selector. So I'm saying in a CSS file that I want to address all of the elements in the HTML that use this tag. It's just like, yeah. So this is the link tag. Let's say there's some link, right? And so this is the HTML part, the HTML file with the structure of the page. And this is the fraction of the CSS file. So the file that describes styling of this page. So if I say that, let's say that all of my A elements should be colored with red, that would make all of my links red, appear as red on the website, right? And I'm saying that with the use of this selector, with this use of this class, I'm defining that all of the elements, the A elements of the website, should be colored red. If I now say that there is a selector called test, and it has some other parameters like, I don't know, text, the text decoration underline. It basically states that the link should be displayed with an underline beneath it. If I said create a class test that states that the text decoration should be underlined, then what I can do, I can use this selector, this class, and add it in here. And I'm not sure about the notation. I'm always using some editors and I don't really think about it, but never mind. So the concept is that in the CSS, you define some styling for a class or for an for a element, because like A is the HTML element, and this is just a class that I can assign to an element, and it comes with some predefined styles. This principle is very much used in the WEBFLOW, and it's named selectors. So for instance, as you can see here, or at least it should be, because there's, yeah, apparently there are no selectors in here, never mind. But like, yeah, so this element has been named a rich text, and with rich text, there are some stylings that is like connected to it. So now if I want, maybe I can add a selector link. There's, yeah, like, I'm not sure what is the CSS value of this class, but like it very much uses the classes principle to style the elements. So then you can assign a simple text a class h1, which makes it bigger, a heading. You can assign it a class, the class big, which makes it bigger because h1 is a separate HTML tag. That's a separate thing. You can assign it a class red, which will make it colored red, and so on. And where you can actually see those styles is here. So let's say we have a rich text class assigned to this piece of text, and we can, there's too many styles to go through it like this. And what I can see is I can actually check what is the exact content of the CSS class that I have connected to this element. As you can see, the z-index, which is how much on the top is the text positioned. You have some other, you have some background color, which is almost white. It's very, very light gray. And so what I'm trying to say is that WEBFLOW uses the classes concept, and it's simply worth understanding the concept of using classes in the CSS and style selectors to use WEBFLOW. Actually, like it's vital almost. So in general, the learning curve is a bit steeper than in the EditoRX, but you can achieve a lot more. And I'll try to send you a few more links so that you can understand the capabilities of the platform. Adrian, I can see you raising your hand. I guess yeah. It's
no worries.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Martin.
So, thank you. If you have some other questions,
interesting.
then you can write them on the chat, or I can answer them later, or however you prefer.
Are you planning to be also for Tomasz presentation?
I'll try to stay, yeah, at least for half an hour. And so I'll be available if you want to ask me some other questions. Feel free. I'll try to drop some more links for inspiration, to see what's capable, to see what are these no-code options capable of. And yeah, so I'll be hanging around in here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Marcin.
Thank you.
Everyone, let's take a quick 10-minute break and let's be back at 12:10. The recording. Also, by the way, Marcin, I think there was a question from Eva on the chat. Whenever you have a moment to answer it.
Yeah, I'm actually just on it. So, but like the answer is not one line, so I need some time to.
Okay, okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So without further ado, Tomasz, if you're ready, then the floor is yours.
I am ready. Maybe even I have a question for Martin before he
sure, of course.
So
yes,
actually, thank you for the presentation, Martin. I really liked it. I was only one question, and that is about you mentioned that with combining WordPress, it is usually best to use it only as a backend solution, and then to create custom front end, which would make it in the long term lower on maintenance, which was something which just didn't make sense to me. So maybe if you can just explore it, because for me, whenever you do something custom, and either the developer who's part of your team is being run down by a tram, or he just leaves your team, then it can be a problem in the future. Or if you could just explore it.
Yeah, like I kind of expected this question, and that's why I also want to stay at your presentation, because you'll be talking about the web builders within the WordPress, which I'm sort of not, which I didn't advise to use basically, but like it's because from my experience, we've been creating several websites using WordPress, and we have maintained and developed some websites based on WordPress, which were using the predefined templates. And every time we're working with such a website, the client actually had issues with its page loading speeds. And when we try to optimize it, we're facing some issues related to all of the package, all of the tools and things that WordPress actually comes with. Like in the majority of those websites, we didn't need for the website to work 70% of the code that was beneath, that was within the WordPress. But even though the code, the scripts, everything that's within it had to be loaded every time the page reloaded and things like this. And also sometimes the plugins are not written in an optimal way when it comes to speed and performance. And so, and it's the issue is, from my perspective, that it's kind of hard to maintain and hard to achieve the top level page loading speeds that you would expect from a website, the fully custom built website. So what we do in order, and what we find works well in WordPress, is the CMS part, is the backend part, but not necessarily the front end part. So the backend part is super cool. You can connect to it with an API. You can use it, and it's not a problem. And the back office is very popular, so there is no point trying to teach people how to use a totally different back office if they are also already familiar with WordPress. But the front end is usually lagging behind when it comes to page loading speeds, especially when you use a lot of jQuery libraries, or you use a lot of web builders, the drag and drop builders. That's what we find was kind of lagging when it comes to speed of the website. So what we if the client had bigger expectations, so that the page loading speed is above 80 when it in the scale of the Lighthouse, so that the scores are above 80, we usually, what we had to do, we had to write a custom front end, or write ourselves a template which was built in an optimal way, which didn't come with all those features and tweaks and all those functionalities that we didn't really need for that project. And then the speed was okay, and then the speed was satisfactory for the client. But whenever we use the so when we were dealing with some websites that were built on a purchase template or a drag and drop template, we usually found that they were just not performing well enough for the client. I'm not saying that they're not performing well. Probably we didn't build them, or they weren't built in a correct way. Maybe if you build something even using jQuery, a lot of jQuery, it can be fast to load. I'm not saying that is not true, but like from my experience, we always have issues with it, and we have number of websites that we had to rewrite the front end or write the template ourselves, so that they were loading fast enough, they were easy enough for us to maintain, and that they like weren't requiring our developer to like click through some plugins, add them with tons of not necessary stuff, and then like it's very pain in the ass for a qualified developer to work with some like drag and drop editors essentially. So kind of a long answer, but so yeah.
All right, thank you for the answer. All right, so I guess we can start, Adrian. If there is an, I don't know if you wanted someone else ask any questions beforehand.
If there's something apart from the question from Eva, but I also didn't want to take too much of your time, Tomasz and everyone else.
So maybe we'll have a little bit
if
of
there's
time.
Something very quickly, Marcin, I mean, sorry, if there's any quick question for Marcin, then yes, but if it's something that requires a long answer, then maybe let's leave it for the chat.
Sure thing. All right, so thank you for having me. I will present you something about Elementor, which is one of the plugins for WordPress that Marcin has already mentioned before me. So one little disclaimer, unfortunately, I have pretty severe cough, so whenever I will mute my mic, it is only for the sake of keeping your ears, functioning even for next couple of days, and also for these purposes, I don't have any camera. Actually, for a little bit, I was thinking that maybe I could just use an AI voice, but just unfortunately, George Clooney's voice, which is, I assume, the one accent that I'm having closest to, wasn't just available. So my name is Thomas. Some of you maybe seen me doing a little presentation about Mapotic and other map building tools. And apart from that, I also been using an Elementor actually since 2017, which for now is actually ancient times where Elementor wasn't actually all that popular as it was now. And maybe I'll tell you a little bit the story why I actually discovered Elementor. And it was before I was starting a little business, and I already spent quite a bit of money on some of the hardware I was purchasing and stuff like that. And the website was pretty much the last thing we needed to invest into. And unfortunately, it just was a little more expensive than I anticipated. And I was also a little bit afraid that in the future, after I paid the sum, and I would like to update the website, because at the start I just wasn't sure if the website that I'm actually designing is the one that we will use for a long time, which we actually didn't. So I thought that maybe I could use WordPress and try, Wix. I tried first because Wix was, the juggernaut at the time, almost the only web builder I believe that was known at the time. And then with a little bit of digging, I found Elementor, and so now I can tell you a little bit about it. So what is Elementor? I need to move this. All right, sorry. So what is Elementor? It is, I believe it is a little bit more than your usual website builder. And why is it so popular? So it has drag and drop interface, which makes it really easy to edit, add, or make the website up to your likings. You see the live editing in with real-time changes. You have a very big widget gallery, so you can choose from extensive library of widgets and templates, which are either directly offered by Elementor or which is offered by other designers who are adding the widgets to the gallery. Also, since since Elementor is running on WordPress, this essentially means that you have access to endless number of plugins that you can use with the combination of with Elementor. Okay. So in here, we can just see, some of the examples, how, the editing in Elementor actually looks like. So, as you can see, you just drop in the heading widget, and here you just add a little bit of text, and you see how things are being edited. This actually isn't all that different from the other web builders that the no-code or low-code web builders that Marcin has shown. So you've probably seen this before. Here you can see a template gallery. So either you can use some of the blogs which have been designed from other designers or from Elementor team, or you can import direct pages, or I mean all of the full pages, or you can save your own templates. With templates, what is also cool is that you can use blocks, which if you use these blocks in multiple pages, such as blocks usually the bottom of pages, like where you have some contact information, social media, or the layout of the website, you usually use, or the menus you use on the whole web, not only in the homepage or. So whenever you update one of the parts of it, it will update it everywhere. The interface, I would say, is really easy. It's really easy. So on the left picture, you can see a selector of elements. In the middle, you can decide some global settings, which is also nice that you can do in Elementor. And you also have pretty great history, which is great, especially if you are working with teams, because of course WordPress can be used by multiple people, which means that sometimes you see that the page just it doesn't look like the same, and then you find out that somebody just was doing something that was maybe not right. Sorry. Okay. Regarding incompatibility, so of course, you can use Elementor with, almost every single plugin there is available in WordPress. But in here, I will stop a little, because what mentioned Marcin is actually right, that, plugins can be a little bit tricky, because some of them, first of all, might not work with Elementor. In some cases, the combination just isn't right. Luckily, since Elementor is so popular, you can find quite a bit of articles or reviews where people already will kind of let you know which plugins are working and which are not. And also the other thing is the more usual isn't the better. So I would recommend that you keep the number of plugins as little as possible. From my experience, I would say that really all you need is some plugin for caching, which, in here you can see example of WP Rocket or WeFree Cache. New widgets, this one is not all that necessary, I believe, but sometimes you just run into a problem that you see, well, maybe I need a special type of widget for picture gallery or something like that, which just isn't available, and just building it with the widgets in Elementor can be tricky. So you can find some plugins which actually add more widgets to the Elementor. Of course, it is always great to use some type of optimization for images, but in this case, I believe this is especially totally unnecessary to use any plugin which is in WordPress. Most likely, for website which is called tiny JPEG or tiny PNG, just optimize your images before you upload them to the media gallery in WordPress. And the last one, this one is A3 lazy load, which is an essential one, because this one really helps with the performance and with the SEO rankings.
I'm sorry. Can I just interrupt you quickly? Maybe I'm not the only one, but I first asked what is a widget, and I also don't know what caching is. If you, when using these words, if you can explain a little bit, maybe there is one who don't understand.
So widgets, as I showed you, are one of these. So for instance, it can be an intersection, heading, text editor. And we will probably see it later on, but I can come back in here. So whenever you're adding a new widget, it essentially means, as you see in this video, that he's dragging the heading and placing it inside the editor. So this is a widget. Caching essentially means that you are not always loading the entire website, which means that it is storing some information about the website, which makes the website load faster.
Okay, thanks.
Regarding the popularity of Elementor, so as I've said, I've started using it in roughly year 2017, which it didn't even have 1 million websites built on it, and over the years nowadays it is used by more than 8 up to 9 million websites is being built on Elementor. If you compare it to Wix, I was a little bit surprised. I hope the information is correct, but I just couldn't find anything else. There is only roughly 10 million websites built on Wix. Squarespace is roughly 3 million, but and then if you look on the Juggernaut, which is WordPress, in its totality, it is more than 800 million websites. Okay, so in here we have a little bit of overview of some of the web builders. Martin actually didn't include Elementor, and I believe that the main reason behind it is that Elementor isn't isn't a standalone website builder such as Wix, Editor X, GoDaddy, Squarespace, but it's actually part of WordPress. And that's probably one of the main differences between Elementor and the other web builders that we will talk about later. And it actually, I believe this is actually the biggest advantage of Elementor in comparison to the other web builders. One other thing is I was actually surprised that only WordPress and Elementor has colored logos. So this actually doesn't mean making the others look a little bit more boring. And of course, you know, the last and most popular web builder is whenever you have a friend who is able to code the website for yourself for free. So then this is also an option that you can use. So you have seen Wix probably before. I believe till this day it is the most popular or most well-known website editor. So it's actually quite similar to the web builders that, and in a nutshell, all of these web builders are almost like egg to egg. I believe there is, you know, very small differences between how they are being used. Of course, as Martin mentioned, there are some feature differences and some additional options. But in a nutshell, I believe that, you know, the differences are very, very small. I would like to compare Elementor with Wix mainly because I believe this is like the, you know, standard of the web builders there is. So if I look like on the things which I believe are very essential for Elementor or very great as positives, I believe the Elementor is really almost fully customizable. I believe it is actually quite great for bigger projects, which might require more data connectors or more, you know, something, you know, which is not your usual and typical website. And it has access to unlimited plugins, which, you know, doesn't mean to use all of them. It just means is that whenever you find something unique or something strange you need to tackle, maybe there is already a plugin existing that will help you out. As Martin mentioned, actually, and this comes not only for Elementor, but the WordPress in its entirety, it is actually quite hard to fully optimize it. I believe it is doable. It just takes a little bit of experience and a little bit of hard work. The learning curve is, of course, steeper than with any other web builders. Of course, even web builders has its differences among them, but using WordPress and Elementor is probably still a little bit more tricky than any other web builder. And then lastly, not all of the plugins are compatible with Elementor. And now if you look at you know, web builders such as Wix, I believe that is super easy to use. I believe it actually has one thing which Martin didn't mention. I would be actually curious to maybe hear from Martin later on if the other web builders also has eShop integrations, because on WordPress you can of course use, you know, you can just build the website yourself and then use a service like WooCommerce or, you know, whatever any other eShop solution there exists. But, you know, it's actually a little bit tricky to really manage it, and it's not all that, you know, I would say user friendly. Whereas on Wix, and I believe this is actually where Wix excels, is whenever you would like to build a small eShop, but with, you know, something more beautiful than WooCommerce is, or with a little more beautiful website, then Wix is probably the way to go. And also, as with Elementor, it has a free template library, which is actually quite broad. So you can probably find a website that you will like as a template and then just style it your way. The things which I really don't like about web builders and Wix especially is that it's not fully flexible. The plugins are usually limited to Wix developers or, you know, essentially the developers of the web builder. And I believe that it actually limits the potential of more exciting projects in the long run. So, and here I will tell a little bit of story from actually our experience with Wix that we have had actually half a year ago. And I believe this can create like a good example of what can happen in if you start using Wix or any web builder in a long run. So we were having a client for our for Mapotech, which wanted to do a simple thing. They wanted to have a map which would be integrated into their web site. This is completely doable. That's not the hard thing. The hard thing was that they also wanted their members to add locations to the map. But unfortunately, we don't allow for members to users to add locations without user accounts, because of course, without user accounts, you can spread their, you know, toxic content, you know, child porn or whatever. You know, it's just not something we cannot really do because it would create more troubles than good. If the website would be built on WordPress, we could just easily do some kind of API where we would just connect the database of the client into our database for the map of the client, essentially meaning that, you know, having their user account, they would only need one user account for their website and for the map itself. Unfortunately, Wix just doesn't allow this. The only way that you could connect through their API to their user account would be that you would become something they call the Wix developer. If you wanted to use that, there are some plugins that you could use, but we just, from our experience, it seemed like that the plugins there were just couldn't really allow us to do what we needed to do, which would mean that we would have to create our own plugin, which would cost probably 10 times more than actually the original investment into the map implementation. We actually, at the end of the day, we were able to manage it through some of our, you know, very skilled developers. So we didn't have to go this way. But the way that this has been done in this case, from my understanding, is that this isn't ideal, and it just, you know, create actually a lot more trouble than having this built on WordPress or anything else. So in here, I just would like to show you some of the examples of how the other web builders looks like. Unfortunately, those I just looked at them, but I've never been their user, so I cannot really give you any more context. But luckily, Martin has already talked about some of them. So Editor X, Squarespace, GoDaddy, and this is pretty much it. As you can see, you know, as I told, you know, I know the features are different, but you know, what are the differences in it? In here, I would like to just give you just some basic, you know, information how to set up the and how to work with the Elementor and plugin. So first, you need to set up the domain. This you can do in you can use any, you know, domain provider there is, and then just install WordPress on it. Usually nowadays, every single domain provider will automatically install WordPress for you instantly. So this actually isn't any problem. There is actually one thing where web builders are also a little bit different, and that is that they usually offer both. They offer like the hosting with domain and the web building. Elementor nowadays does the same. I believe they are doing this for a year or so. To be fair, I'm not sure how well their hosting is. So then after you set up the domain and install the WordPress, you need to choose a desired WP theme. WP theme is something that is essentially still running in the WordPress. It's usually best to find a theme which is known to be working well with Elementor. So the ones that I've heard are known to be the best is Ocean WP or Sydney. Then you just add Elementor in the plugin store and you start building your website. Once you build it, you need to optimize it. I don't have here the thing that you need to do first, and also Martin mentioned this, and that is to design the website. And this is completely essential. Without that, you just cannot start doing this, because you will run into the same problems as with coding it or no coding it yourself. You will just, you know, every single change to the main design will really cost you a lot more hours than just to do it right one time. Adding a new widget, so you know the widget gallery is very huge. So as actually even Eva asked, so you can just choose one and just drag and drop it inside the editing space. Whenever you have a certain widget, you can edit it. And every single widget has its unique settings. So usually the content, as you can see on the first picture, is the one which is different for every single widget. Style can also vary, because, you know, if you are styling a heading or if you are styling a picture, so the settings in there can be different. But advanced is usually quite the same for every single one. And in here, you again see some similarities with the web builders. So in here, you just, you know, improve, or, you know, and I will show you this in the demo at the end. But in here, you just, you know, set a margin or padding for each of the elements or widgets that you are adding. You can add some motion effects. You can add different background. You can create a special border for these widgets. So in a nutshell, you know, you can really style every single element of your website to your liking. And what I also mentioned already, you have global settings, which is awesome, because you just need to set, if you do it right the first time, and then you need to adjust it. Then you just change the font, you change the color, and it will get changed automatically everywhere, which is handy. In here, just a little mention, this actually isn't, I believe this actually isn't something really all that interesting or all that difficult, and that is adding a map or custom CSS to your website. So for these purposes, you have special widget, which is called shortcode widget. And in the case of maps, all you could do is just to use an iframe, which essentially means that you are embedding the map or anything actually else. You can embed different websites into your website through iframe. In here, I have just two examples. In the third and fourth bullet, the third one is the general iframe that you can find on the internet. The one below is the one that we use if you are embedding any map from Maplogic. In here, I have just a couple of, and these are really essentials. Of course, as Martin mentioned, on WordPress, really, you cannot fully optimize WordPress page. I mean, probably you can, but it will probably take loads and loads of time. So you are usually aiming at like 95%, and then you are pretty much satisfied. So, but there are some ways that you can make the website running very well and without any problems, I would say. And so that is maybe the first one is avoiding hiding widgets. That's something that Martin also mentioned on the other web builders. I would be actually curious how this affects the performance of these web builders, because from my experience with Elementor, whenever you have certain part of the website that, for instance, it's looking good on desktop or tablet, but it just doesn't look that well on mobile. If you are not able to somehow optimize it or style it the way that it will also work on mobile, and you hide it, the problem is that more elements like the more elements like that you hide on certain devices, the code behind it is still being loaded, which means that if you have website which has, let's say, 10 elements which work on desktop, but only one which is displayable on mobile, and you hide 9 of them, it still loads all 10 of them, which means that it will just slow down the website. And from my experience, whenever you are looking for any web page rating programs or testers, they always kind of like the website version, but they always hate the mobile version. So try to limit the number of widgets that you hide, which is associated to try to limit the number of widgets altogether. Sometimes you can run into the thing is that where you can, with 3 widgets, you can create like one beautiful thing, but maybe there is already one widget which does the same for you. I will show you a couple of these later on. This actually isn't all that correct, but if you are using fonts inside, which which are going to be, there is a special setting in Elementor where you can block loading all of the fonts, and just you can upload there the font that you are using for your project. Otherwise, it will always look for all of the fonts, and this is actually one of the things which you can do easily. And in a nutshell, just try to make the website as simple as possible from a perspective of adding more, widgets to it mainly. This will probably help you, and try to use the tiny, try to optimize your pictures, try to add the lazy loads as I mentioned before, and you will probably be pretty good. All right, so maybe now I would like to show you a little bit of walkthrough of one website that I have built for this purpose. Maybe does someone has any questions after the presentation or for now? All right, so let me see if it's something in chat.
Nothing in the chat with questions, at least. It was just the answer from Martin.
Cool. So just confirm with me that you right now see a WordPress page.
Yes.
All right, perfect. So, WordPress in its nutshell, as Martin said, and I agree with him, that this is the best feature of WordPress. Like someone who designed the CMS has, I would like to go dinner with him, because it must be someone very smart, because it's very logical, it is very easy to do. And it actually, one of the things that I like about it, that even though I've been using WordPress for more than 6 or 7 years, they updated this, but you still understand where every single thing is, which doesn't apply, for instance, to Google Ads, which has become quite a trash. Again, I kind of jumped into this without any graphical template, which is why the website isn't all that beautiful. But I will just show you. I'll just show you how some of the things are working in here. So maybe we can start with in here. So again, you can in here you can see sections. So I can move with these sections. Those are already built in things. So whenever you have something which is already built in, then it looks like so. One cool thing that you can do in Elementor, and this is something that you can probably do in presentations of WordPress, is that whenever I just copy one of these things, I can update the style of the other elements, which will match it, so that all of these things are looking the same. So essentially, I built something like this, which is very simple. And now I would like to, because the way I build this, that we have this, we have of course the menu in here. We have here some kind of cover photo. We have in here some cool loading things. And then we have the partner cities, which use it in the Git head. So now I would like to move actually back to WordPress. And we will actually quite quickly build a page for Prague. So whenever you are adding a new page in WordPress, this is quite simple. So you just hit in here, add a new page. It will look like so. Just add title to it. In here, actually, you can set up some of the SEO information, like have the page title. You decide which information are being taken care of, like the page title, separate page content. You can add some focus phrases and all of that. What's also important in here is to always set the template, because the original template usually includes some elements which you don't really need in Elementor. So the best thing is always to use Elementor canvas. And now we can move into actually creating the page in Elementor. So just a sec, I'll give you a little example. All right, so we can start with things which we talked about. So maybe we can actually use some of the templates that are in here. We can delete this later on, but at least so you have some idea how this looks like. So with templates, you can decide whenever you want to use a complete page, or if you need to use just blocks. So in here you can see that you can just use some kind of like bottom of the page, or about this is probably some type of product overview and stuff like that. So you can only use blocks, or you can use entire pages. So let's see if there's something that could work for us. So this is about Prague, so probably we need like big picture at the top and some information below. So so let's see, maybe we can use this one. All right, so you can just then insert it. It asks you if you want to apply. Okay, so we don't. All right, so this is first. Maybe we can try that later on. But I need to check if it will work with my menu. All right, this works. All right, so I don't know why I don't know. Oh wow. All right, so let me just quickly get rid of. This has been working before. So this is, usually stuff that happens while you are presenting. Let's try this one. All right, so let's get back to this. All right. All right, so we're gonna start with the templates that I've already used in the other page. So as I said, usually menu is the thing that you will have on all the pages. So if I just upload it in here, it is completely going back to the wrong settings. That's interesting. That's never happened before to me. All right, so let's do this one time again, and I will just need to use the template. All right. So let's say that you would like to build like a top menu. So for this, I will just go into the elements. I will search in here a menu. I will use this one. Usually you have plenty of other things in here you can see, but usually you can like mega menu, but usually I go with like nav menu. Just ignore some of these things. I'm using this website for something completely else. I just didn't want it to completely destroy my some of my global settings that I have in here. So, you know, you can ignore the first things in here. I can add image in here, and this is the way that you are basically adding widgets to your website. I can decide pretty much the size by sizing down the columns. So let's make it like so. With the columns, I can just decide whether in which position I would like the widgets to be being placed in. Actually, one of the things that in here. Actually, one of the things that I like, I believe it was the editor X that Martin has showed, which Elementor doesn't has, is the fact that you can move with some of the elements freely, which Elementor just doesn't allow you to do. Because in Elementor, all you can do is that, as I talked about, so we have these settings with content, style, and advanced. So if I go into advanced and I would like to move this element a little bit to the right side, all I would do is just to sorry, this one. Yeah, I would need to use the margin and just move it like so, for instance. And this way I can place it. Of course, I can just go into the widget and just say right away that I would like to have it in center, or I would like to stretch it like so. All right, so this way we have pretty much taken care of the top. If you are editing entire sections, so in here you can just edit a section. You can decide if you would like the content to be boxed or with full width. In here, it doesn't make any difference because we are already using the full width as a default setting. But you can do some other stuff with the sections. For instance, you can decide how high the section should be. So either it can be default, which essentially makes it as high as the biggest element, which in this case is the USE-IT logo, or I can just make it very big. Maybe I will change the the color so that you can actually see what's happening. Okay. Oh, that's maybe too dark. Okay, so if I'm editing a section, I have fit to screen, it will just make it, you know, full screen. If I have min height, then in here I can decide how big I actually want it to be. So let's make it like so, for instance. Okay. Now let's add a new part of a new section. In this section, actually, I would like to have a picture. So again, I go to the style. I will add a picture of Prague. And this is actually quite small for now because there are no widgets in it as of yet. And actually, I don't want this to have anything else than one single heading. So let's add heading. Let's put it in the middle. Let's set it as H1. You can in here you have some default sizes. You can use these in the global settings also, but actually sizes I never use global settings for these because sometimes you are just changing an H2 or H3 which you are using in a different part of the website, and it just, you know, destroys the whole website, especially for the mobile. So probably if you are very maybe if you will find a smarter way, or you are very organized how you are using your HTML tags, then you can do it, but I'm maybe a little bit lazy. So for these, I actually always go in here. So I can, in here, you can style the text. You know, I'm right now using the global color, so I'm keeping this in the primary color. In here, you can choose the font that you are using, but mainly what I'm interested in is you can choose the size and maybe keep in here Prague. And just to make this size, just to make this look a little nicer, so let's make this section a lot bigger. So let's make it, for instance, like so. Okay. And let's make the size of the picture to cover. One other thing that you can do with the images is to add a background overlay, which means that, you know, I can make it like a color, and which can make usually the text a little easier to read. What's also really great about Elementor is that it has all these things, all of these settings that you can really You don't need to customize the images anywhere else. You can just do pretty much every single thing in the you can do everything in the Elementor itself. All right, so let's do another section, and we can probably stop there because I would like to show you one thing which is actually quite important. So either you can start with a section which doesn't have any columns from the get-go, like I did in here, or you can decide how many sections you need for the for the section, for how many columns you need for the section. But one thing is that if I add like 2 sections in here, and I would like to add 2 columns in here, and I would like to have a heading above in the middle, it actually doesn't work this way in Elementor. It's one of the stupidest thing that Elementor has till this day, and that is that you just cannot have a heading which should be in on top of one of the columns. One thing that you can do, and I would recommend not doing that because I've seen that on some Elementor website, is for instance to have like 3. Oh, sorry, wrong. Add the heading here, and then go to intersection, and start adding more sections below. This isn't the ideal approach, so I will just delete this monstrosity. Just add in here section with no columns. Add in here your heading, which can be H2, and let's make it like best places in plan, or make it best places to visit. And add intersection, which already has columns. You can add a new column this way. You have 3 columns right now. And now I will show you yeah. So as I mentioned, you can use sometimes widgets which do exactly the same as combination of different widgets. So in here, I can, for instance, do like something which is called image box. In here, you have the capability to add an image, a heading, and text. Well, technically, you can also do that like so. So I add an image. Just ignore the size because you can style the size inside the settings. Add heading. I just add a text editor. Oopsie. But this just even creates even more mess inside the CSS, makes the websites even slower, and makes your life even more complicated once you start optimizing this for the mobile view. Now, if I'm talking about mobile view, actually, again, as you know, the other web builders, and here you have a responsive mode, so you can decide if you are viewing this in a desktop, tablet, or a mobile view. What's also cool about Elementor, I'm actually not sure if Martin mentioned that in the web builders, and if this actually work with the web builders, is that if I go, for instance, to this section, and I'm doing any changes inside for the padding and margins, it only influences the mobile view, which is really great because this way, although this does also add a little bit of code inside the website, this is a lot better approach than to do something like this, where I would say, well, this column, this one just doesn't look all as well in the mobile view. So I can go in here, responsive, I can just hide it on mobile. And it then becomes invisible. Right now it is visible, but because I am in the Elementor editor. But if you would publish this the page and go to your mobile, you just wouldn't see it. Well, guess what? The website is the part of this website is still there, and it's still causing the website to be slower, and it still needs to be somehow rendered or somehow the website, it just needs to, it's still, it doesn't just, it doesn't look at it, it still knows it is there, it just doesn't, it reads the entire code, but at the end, it just doesn't visualize this. So just, I know, and there are some, there are some scenarios where you just have no other chance but to do this, but I would just recommend just not doing it entirely. Maybe one funny story, when I started using Elementor before, I really struggled to do the mobile view. So what I would do is that I would build the entire website like so, and then below it, and then just hide it on mobile, everything, and then just build almost like custom mobile page below it, which means that I essentially my pages were actually twice the size than they needed to be, which of course made them pretty slow, and SEO and Google really didn't like it. So I learned a lot since then. All right, and maybe the last thing that I can showcase in here before we end, as I mentioned, so we can add in here either HTML. You can have in here something which is called code highlight, which is usually used only as highlighting certain colors of code, as Martin's software was using. But in here, I would like to use a widget which is called shortcode. And in here, if I will use my site window in here. And if I passed in here the embed for the map, I'm right now I can have a map in here. All right, so I hope I covered pretty much the essentials. As Martin said multiple times, this is not something you can just cover in a half an hour or an hour presentation. This is something where you need to really spend hours and hours of either viewing some YouTube tutorials, because there's plenty of them, doing some some learning on the internet, because there's plenty of articles which describe how different functions work on Elementor and how to make the most out of it. But in a nutshell, I hope this is it. So maybe for the end, I will just summarize that some of the elements that we have Elementor. So again, elements you have in here, because as you can see, there's plenty of them. Maybe the one thing that I'll mention now that I see it is that Elementor, of course, does offer a free version, which you can use for free for how long you need. But to be fair, the free version really limits you quite a bit. So I wouldn't recommend building any websites on it. Maybe I would recommend it only for playing, deciding if you wanted to go for Elementor or not. The pricing of Elementor is actually quite similar to the web builder, so I don't believe the price is actually such a key factor, because at the end of the day, you essentially pay almost the same money if you look on similar features with either using Elementor or anything else. And yeah, so I don't know how quick I was, because I'm usually quick with my presentations, but I believe that this covered the most. Maybe if you have some more time, I can show you some more features in here, or maybe if you have some questions, we can have a little discussion, or maybe I can show you something that you would like to see, and not just me guessing what could be interesting for you.
I think we still have a little bit more time, because you started also at 15 past, and if
okay.
The participants would like to stay a little bit more, I think we could hear a little bit more about Elementor. And
okay, does anybody has any questions? Okay, seems like not. All right, so let's make this actually a little nicer. So let's try, and I will need to use an.
Martin has a question.
Okay.
I might just have a bit of a disclaimer that, like, I might be a bit biased, not towards the Elementor, because like we are building custom software, so I'm not saying that it's bad. It can be useful sometimes, especially I think that one thing that could be mentioned here is that WordPress and the Elementor is so robust. I mean, you can add multiple plugins, you can build very advanced things out of it. But the one downside, I would say, to WordPress is the deployment, right? Because you need to host the website yourself on some hosting provider, whereas the clickable builders usually, like, you just connect the domain, and that's also that's my comment. And one more, like, don't look at my advice that says that its Elementor is not like good, because it can be good, because it might be just us who have like poor experiences with it, because like we're about building custom things, not like clickable things. And yeah, so that's just a disclaimer.
Yeah, to be fair, like, I believe that the decision of either going Elementor, web builder, or using some services of company like Martin is working for or he's owning, it's very difficult because you always find some aspects where one of these decisions will make your life easier in one period of time. Maybe the one thing that Martin mentioned is that you need to use some kind of hosting. I don't really see that as a big problem because hostings are not necessarily cheap, but I just believe that this is such a thing that if you need if this is a problem, that you'll probably solve this problem within like an hour. So I don't see this as a big problem. I don't know if Martin maybe wanted to say that if the web builders the hosting is faster. I just cannot say that, or maybe Martin can elaborate a little bit more.
Maybe it's not that it's faster, it's just easier. I mean, to host a website on some hosting provider by the SSL and things like this, you need to have some degree of technical knowledge of how it works, whereas it's kind of more, it's just one click on the builders, which could be advanced, but I'm also saying that so if you have an hour, you'll learn how to host a website. That's not a problem.
So I know what you meant by it. So what Martin actually means is that when and this is part of the presentation where I mentioned that you need to before host your domain, which means that if I would like to build a website which is called Thomas is Awesome, so I need to first register the domain Thomas is Awesome on some type of hosting provider. Let's say I'm using Hostinger, which I don't recommend. I'm in a complete trap and I cannot leave it, but I'm using it. And so I would register it on Hostinger. Then I can install WordPress through Hostinger right away. And then the third thing that you need to do is to have some kind of encryption, which is called, the short name for this is SSL, which basically just means that your website is secure. And if it doesn't have SSL, it will it usually nowadays it just doesn't allow you to enter that website anymore. However, what Martin says is that in web builders you have this already pretty much done for you. Elementor nowadays offer the same thing, so you can actually host the way you can actually do the hosting and Elementor bundle through Elementor right away. I've never tried it, so I'm not sure how well this works. But if you use the approach that I have been doing till today, you will probably spend roughly additionally 30 minutes of your work because you can have usually these hosting providers. They usually offer something like SSL for life for like $5 or $10. I know it's additional money, but I just usually, and there is a way how you can do this yourself. But if you count how often you need to do that, then the $5 just doesn't sound so terrible. So actually this I don't agree. This is the first thing I strongly disagree with Martin, and that is that I don't see the issue of actually hosting the website yourself as something all that major.
I guess also that's why there's so many different tools. I mean, some people prefer some people prefer others. If there was only one opinion, then there would be only just one tool. And I think that's what's great in all of this. There's always pros and cons for every one of them, depending on who is using them. And yeah.
Maybe one other thing that I will mention, and that is that, of course, I agree with Martin. I will actually come back to WordPress because I will show you maybe inside of the WordPress a little more because I didn't know that we had so many time left. So maybe we can actually explore WordPress on its own a little bit. Is that, the web builders are great, and I assume that they are really cheaper. They're usually, they are faster to deploy. You don't need to care about the SSL and all that stuff, and you can have it probably a lot faster than you do with WordPress and Elementor and with the optimization and all of that work. But unless you use some work of custom developer or someone who is taking care of this, and in the future you run into any problems where you require a data connector, such as we experience with Wix. And maybe this was only issue with Wix, and it just doesn't happen on the other web builders. But if I remember it correctly, every single web builder that Martin was showing always had only plugins which were only supported by either some developers which has a license or which has agreement with that company, or which are built by Squarespace, GoDaddy, or Wix or anyone else. Which means that if, for instance, you in the future, and this doesn't necessarily only Digit, but with any other project, running into something where you need something, and this can be only one feature that you need to build customly, you might run into a problem like, well, you cannot do that unless you are a certified developer. And just to give you an example from the Wix, we actually tried to contacting Wix if we can become one and what it actually obtains. And I don't know because they never got back to me. And I tried 3 different email addresses because probably there are so many developers who wants to build something on Wix that they just didn't want it even they didn't care to respond to me. And so really, you can run into problems in this aspect where, maybe if the web builder isn't as optimized, actually the web builder is more optimized than the WordPress. Well, I guess that, for me, less optimization but a little more freedom is really all that I all that I need. All right. So maybe a little bit of about WordPress. So inside of WordPress, this is actually again, it's very simple. The time that you spend, the places you spend most of the times is usually in plugins. So, and please, this website I only use as some type of gallery for some cocktail recipes that I do. So I am not updating this, and this is not a client project. So in here you have overview of all of the plugins. I actually have here more than I need because these are the plugins that were installed in here when I just purchased the domain and installed the WordPress. If you are adding a new plugin, the pages, as you can see, plugins and pages, this looks pretty much the same. So at the top, you usually find like add a new. And then in here, you can search. So for instance, you can search for Mapotech, which does exist as plugin inside WordPress, but it's completely not important because you can just embed the website right away. We have it in here just for the purpose of marketing technically. So you need to do plugins once in a while. It is always good to update the plugins. One thing that I will say is if you are using Elementor or anything else on WordPress, try to take a look on forums or try to check how well the new update is working with that certain plugin if it's popular, because sometimes newer updates can be a little bit problemsome, I would say. In here, you have, of course, the templates. So, the ones that I created before. So you have overview of all of your templates. Then one thing that you for sure you're going to need, I see this question.
No, there was no question. It was just me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And the thing that you are going to need most certainly if you are building anything is the media library. This is a place where you add any like images, any probably only images. I'm not sure actually if you can upload videos in here. Probably you can. And just one thing that I will say, upload the images in here optimized already. If you don't, there are some plugins that they can do it for you, but they're usually paid and they are even not that good, and they just makes the whole thing slow. So just don't do that. And posts are I actually use posts in here for a little different purpose, but technically you can have in here posts. Posts are usually parts of blogs. So if you are running a blog, you can just separate pages, which is because page is used as like homepage, contact page, about page, and all the stuff that you see on a website. And posts are usually can be parts of blogs. And this is something that usually works quite well with Elementor. So maybe I can actually come back and show you how this works with the page that I'm actually using this for, because I have one pager. Is that you can have in here this entire section is nothing else, but I don't want to destroy this, but it doesn't show the name of it. Okay. Oh yeah, in here. This is only like a blog in here. So in here I just decide how many columns I want, but all of the contents in here, they are just managed from WordPress. And that's like one of the things that even Martin mentioned, that WordPress, the CMS is really the best part of it. The Elementor, I believe, is also awesome, but the CMS part is just awesome. One other thing, because the websites that you have seen till this moment look pretty, average, I would say. We actually have our entire Mapotech website built on Elementor. It's actually quite a big website, and I'm not sure. I was actually checking some of the SEO and optimization stuffs before, like a month ago, and the web version was really good. The mobile version isn't all that good, but we are working on it. So I guess that maybe in a month you will see that you can actually optimize the Elementor page, Elementor plugin pretty well. So as you can see, and you know, one thing that I really like about Elementor is that without the boundaries, I believe that you can build something, you know, that no one else will just notice that any web builder was used for a page like so. And I guess I don't have anything else to say. So if someone has any questions, now is the time. But if people are already leaving, then I don't want them to be. I don't want them to be left hungry, I guess.
No, thank you so much, Tomasz. Let's just quickly check if someone has any questions, either for Martin or Tomasz, since Martin is still here, and thank you for staying. Don't be shy.
Yeah, I may have just a comment. One more cool thing about WordPress is the community and the amount of like forums and threads when you can read about your issues. That's super cool, and that is basically an open source platform. Like anyone can submit their plugins, and it's like the whole ecosystem is much bigger than any of those on Webflows or Wixes or other platforms.
810 million websites built on WordPress, which is just great.
That's a lot.
Imagine if they received 1 cent every month from one of them. Maybe actually have a question for Martin, since he was using more of the web builders, and which I actually didn't use. Did you ever run into, what were the biggest problems that you run into with web builders? Did you ever experience something that, since you are also a developer, where you were like, oh no, I am in a complete trap. I can either build a completely custom website like fully, or I will have a website which is a lot cheaper or probably easier to maintain, but it will be limited.
Well, before I answer this question, I just wanted to mention that we have a Cal which is very interested in web development, I guess, from Biozin. Yeah, but like the thing is that I guess I haven't tested these solutions to that extent to find a problem that I wasn't able to overcome. Like the one thing that you also asked, what are my experiences with the e-commerce platforms, like the e-commerce functionalities of those platforms. I haven't tested them out also, so I got no idea how does an e-commerce on Webflow perform. I know that, for instance, in Shopify, it could build this decent e-commerce, and also to some extent with a drag and drop editor. So that's a good solution, but I don't have any experience with that. And when it comes to the issues, I would say that those issues that I've already found in the editors were, especially in the Webflow, but like Webflow is much more powerful than DirectX. Like I have experience in these two platforms, and those issues that I can encounter, those problems, were more because of the fact that I wasn't aware of some things of how it works, rather than like the capability of the platforms were limited. So yeah, so I guess it wasn't the fault of the platform that I couldn't do something, couldn't achieve something that I wanted because I designed it that way. It was rather the like I haven't had that much knowledge about how, you know, like for instance, the responsiveness work, the columns, how do they work, and so on and so on. So it was rather my fault than the limitation of the platform. But like I haven't built some crazy things on them. So I just like built two simple one pagers, yeah, simple websites. So I don't have that much experience. Right now I'm testing a retool platform that I've also mentioned, which will be tested to a much higher extent. So this
and one other thing I realized, and maybe this is actually my mistake that I didn't mention in my presentation, was one thing that WordPress also does. And this is maybe the purpose why it wasn't a presentation, because WordPress does so many stuff that it's quite hard to remember every single one of them. So it's actually a thing that you will never jump into the same river, because there are always new things that you can find. And that is the hierarchy system. So you can have main administrator of the WordPress. You can have page editors, you can have post editors, you can have only people that can they have no capability of editing, but they can just view or whatever. So you can really fine tune, and that is actually something we have in Mapotech also. And I know it's really hard to do it right. So Martin, does actually the other web builders also has these capabilities to decide this person can edit pages, this person can add posts? It does, right?
It does, but not to this extent which WordPress has. I mean, at least those two that I've tested, they have some permissions level, but they're like maybe 2 or 3 options to choose from. It's not like in WordPress where you can actually limit. And if you're not feeling good with the permission levels that are predefined there, you can create your own ones, I guess, in code. So that's something that you couldn't do in the editor. So I would say, summarizing our discussion, I would say that WordPress is more robust, but it also requires a bit more, not excluding the Elementor, which is pretty straightforward and drag and drop. But if you want to change something in WordPress, you can do it. So that makes the WordPress more robust, but it's requires a bit more knowledge, because when you want to change some, for instance, some permissions or get something changed in your theme, then you need to edit PHP code, HTML code, and then that's where the knowledge from the first part of today's meeting actually comes in handy. So,
and maybe I can summarize this, that actually the knowledge from the first part of the meeting is completely relevant both to the web builders on its own, or the WordPress plus Elementor ones. Because the more that you know, the more that you can inspect the code also and see, where your problems are coming from. And once you know Elementor and knowing the code behind it, then maybe you will find out, all right, so maybe I can get rid of this and build it a little bit differently, still using the drag and drop builder, and you will make the website just more optimized. So, actually you can summarize that the first part is more important than anything that me and Martin talked about.
I mean, you can jump straight to the second and third part, which is either Elementor or one of the web builders, but you won't be fully aware of what you're doing unless you actually know how the HTML CSS works.
And technically, you are the elephant on tree, so you are there, but you have no idea how you got there, and there is big chance that you will fall down, because Martin mentioned that WordPress is robust, so you can build anything on it. But this also means is that you can destroy it by one click, because you can upload there something which will just make your website go down, which is not nice, especially for the case of Digit, where you have I don't know how many partner cities or people going inside of it, but you have the user permissions which can
yeah. And I guess the most important thing that you'll need for your Digit hackathon would be persistence and some yeah, you will face issues, either if it's with the Elementor or with web builders, or if you want to write plain HTML, you'll probably face some issues, some error messages that you don't expect, but that's just part of the game.
Of course, it's just even Thomas that uses Elementor on daily basis had a little hiccup. So I mean, of course, that's part of the fun. So thank you everyone very much, especially the presenters, for the very interesting topics. We will be summarizing all of this into a document to be used then for the hackathon. I hope to see you all there. And before you drop, I have 2 things I wanted to say. One of them, it would really help us if you fill in the feedback form. It's in the chat, just to see how you like it, what could have gone a little bit different, better, or if you liked it in general. And last but not least, if you could, and I will stop the recording, give me